The Situation Room. Witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
It's still January 2020.
The only way to start your day.
30th day of the month, 30th day of the year. Good morning and welcome to The Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. How you doing, Ndu?
Good morning, Eric. I'm fine, thank you.
How you day?
I day. How body?
I day.
Good.
Omo.
I have to teach you. You say body day inside cloth.
Oh,
unless it's more than that.
Body day inside cloth.
Very good.
Yeah, this is it. A body day inside cloth.
Yes.
Yep. You had a good day?
I did.
What time did you sleep? Did you watch what was happening? The big soap opera.
Actually, you told me, so that's when I actually then decided, okay, let's go see what's going on here. So, of course, watching the drama that took place in the city.
I take care of you.
Apparently,
when there's entertainment, I tell you where to find it.
Thank you very much.
City.
Yes.
How you doing?
Fine.
The hair has grown a
very
bit.
fine.
The hair has grown a bit today.
Wait now. Small. Maybe it's just the other day he got there.
It's growing. Pole.
I hope it's giving you hope.
Yes. By June.
Utakuwa na afro.
Utakuwa na afro.
Okay.
And then I'll dye it a bit. Just to match up.
Why do you want to dye it? Just let it do its thing, man.
Yeah, no, I just want to speed up the process.
Which process?
That one. Of dyeing it.
Yeah, you've said it well. If you want to dye it so that you can speed up the process of dyeing, makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
Let's take a look at the headlines. What do you have, Ndu?
Oh, well, of course, front and center. Why do Kenyans vote for clowns? This is the question that's being asked on the front page of the Daily Nation.
And what do they mean by clowns?
Well, voila, on y va. Supported by power barons because of their crowd-pleasing theatrics, social misfits such as Waitito, Sonko, and Babu Owino have taken society hostage. So no hold barred here.
This is an editorial.
Why have they left out Moses Kuria?
Front page editorial.
Well, let's see how they'll continue. And so they continue by saying, adieu, Waitito, governor sent home. But why do Kenyans vote for clowns? A man who throws his family members under the bus to exonerate himself from corruption charges is one clutching at straws. And the straws gave in. Desolate, angry, and impeached, Mr. Ferdinand Waitito fought, clawed, clowned, but Senate would hear none of it. The senators overwhelmingly voted to kick him out. But it's looking at the fact that, or rather the sentiment, that nobody checked his management acumen and political parties when approving nominations for governors. And these people hardly cares. Everyone knew Mr. Waitito, a stone merchant turned politician who could easily participate in street fights. The mobs loved him, and for that, the political elite wanted him. He, like Gideon Mbuvi Sonko in Nairobi, would stand over stinking trenches, mesmerize the crowds as down-to-earth, and turn physical if it came to that. For that, he was cheered on by exuberant crowds drowned in political ecstasy. My goodness.
Mutuma Matthew himself. That one is clear. It's come from the top. It's a direct editorial on the front page.
Well, there you
it's
go.
Actually, it's a good thing sometimes, when a publication goes editorial and it editorializes the front page, because it's saying, look, guys, we are setting the agenda. This is a conversation we need to have. Now, as to what the conversation is basically saying, are we saying that the only things that people should have considered are like, does it have management acumen? Does it?
Well, I mean,
where does that come in when you're thinking as a voter?
Does it really come into play?
What should we be considering?
Why? Exactly. But when you look at elections and the way in which people vote, do those things actually play in the minds of the majority of the people who go to the vote, thinking about his management skill? Or is it more about how I've been wowed by what he said at particular times?
At what point in our history have people actually voted for their political leaders because of their supposed
managerial skills or any
Since
kind of management acumen. I don't think that's...
They've voted for people because they feel they respect them. They've voted for people because they feel this is the sort of person who might, as we say, Kenyans, bring development. They voted for them because they're in a party that is predominant in that region. They voted because they think that person is friendly with the government. Not for managerial abilities.
No.
Yeah, but then now you end up voting for some of them because of their clown capabilities.
Yes,
That's what the headline is saying.
if somebody,
enough, yeah,
but that is an excellent value to vote for. If your life is dull and there's an individual or individuals who've proven that they can liven your life and every once in a while tell you a snippet of a truth but predominantly lie to you, and while doing that they make you laugh and they make fun of others, why not?
I'll tell you why not, because soon after that you'll start complaining that their person is not doing something else.
Even when
you are voting for them because you're thinking that this person is hilarious, he's interesting, he's interesting to listen to, but then you're voting for them to go and do something that is more than that. When they don't do the other things, which is bring development, as you call it, which is ensure that the county is being managed well, ensure that when you're receiving a budget of 13 billion shillings every year, that money is actually being utilized to the benefit of the wananchi. If that person is not doing all those things, then you start judging them.
Oh, of course.
And this is why we're being called out as voters. Look at the position you're if you want a court jester, create a position and say we want an entertainment, just like in schools we have an entertainment prefect.
Usually these people that we are now calling jokers, like say, let's talk about their collective father here. Okay, that man was for the longest time a slumlord, even in Kibera. That man also has a track record of development when he has been MP. He's not some useless person who did not do anything. The entertainment factor plays a major role.
What is the track record of development? Where is it?
You sound as though you do not believe.
Yes.
And you believe that the man did absolutely nothing. It is not true that he did.
When he was in parliament, the role of a parliamentarian is checks and balances, legislation.
Apana. Eric,
primary.
That is the written down expectation.
Primary role of a politician.
Let me repeat it. That is the written down expectation of what we think a leader should be. Written down. It's documented. Role of a parliamentarian is A, B, C, D.
Yes.
Role of a parliamentarian, as far as the voter is concerned, is to bring development. Whatever the thing development is, bring it. Ensure that if they
lobby the government so that the things that are required in your area happen. That is part of it, right? It's not that going to bring development by investing in putting up a hospital.
You are aware that it's you who's saying
it is going to champion.
And anytime any development project that is government sponsored, which is actually the nature of all projects,
yes,
the MPs who are smart take credit for it. The voting population until recently didn't even fully understand that these things are all planned for, and that what can happen is that they can be withheld, but doesn't mean that they were not planned for. That when they happen, the government has determined to do it. So it's not as though the MP, because of his abilities, has gone and brought the development. No.
But it plays a role.
No.
You play a role as an MP.
That's where the politics comes in.
No. Practically speaking, the MP plays a role, CT.
Which is this role, Eric?
When, for example, an MP has a very serious role in budget appropriations, right? So when an MP is lobbying for areas of development, like, say, this particular section of the city of the country requires more hospitals. This particular section requires more roads. You are lobbying the government. You're telling the government, yes, you have a budget that you want to set aside for roads, but you need to consider and earmark this as top priority. How are you prioritizing this? This is where the conversation happens between all levels of leaders. So the MP, because he's the man on the ground, woman on the ground, the person who's representing the people, understands what the needs are, pushes that case forward. So when these plans are being made by the technocrats in the offices, they know that we hear a lot of problems about a certain area, a certain constituency. That's what an MP would do, right? So I think what is being called out here is our expectations, our thinking at the point of voting versus our expectations at the end of it. and saying, if our thinking is we'd like somebody who goes and champions for development in this area, would like somebody who goes and is very good at advocating things to happen, things to move, pushing for funds to come and develop the area, then we need to look at that person and see their capability to do that. If you're looking at somebody who just goes and makes noise and says every time we're going to participate in demonstrations, that doesn't help. Case in point, Mwiki, Senator of Nairobi, takes action, takes steps. Local MP, we don't know
what she did or
what
not
she
do.
did.
Okay. Well, I think it's clear that at some time, by the time that people are making decisions, I don't think the sycophancy and the clowning and all of this is the only factor that's taken into consideration. It would appear so, but you only see this appearance after the fact. That, all right, you voted somebody in because they made you laugh for a period of time.
And they spoke well.
I think that Kenyans vote in a slightly different manner, whereby they see that this person has the potential to, or maybe in another instance has done something for another community, and it's possible that they could then come and do the same for us. And I think that would be the backdrop upon which Kenyans vote. I don't think that it's purely because he made us laugh or he was able to rally a crowd.
But even when people talk, or you have an editorial such as the one you read, you are assuming, for instance, that Waititu actually beat Kabogo in the elections. Is that what you're assuming? This is Kenya. Let's start from that premise.
Oh, by the time that they're making this, I'm
yes,
sure
they're
that's
assuming,
they're assuming that Waititu was the people's choice.
Yes,
yes.
And yet, if you look at Waititu didn't just begin born in Kibera, councillor in Jiru.
No.
Waititu, I'm talking about Waititu's history. Became MP in Bakassi. Okay, he was even an assistant minister water. This guy had a political career. It's not as though he became councillor, then sat around, waited, became governor. No. There was a track record in the city.
This is what I'm saying.
And there is no place where you can argue that politics is as competitive as the city of Nairobi.
Yep.
It is seriously competitive in the city. And this is where he has thrived. Now, those years cannot amount to nothing. Then he becomes governor. Then his problems began, probably because the same tactics he used when he was councillor and MP, he brought them into the seat of governor, and this was a totally different dispensation, a totally different time, a totally different expectation. Everything was different. And the spotlight was on you. MP, your God knows how many of you. Governors, only 47, and the people of Kiambu only have one governor. They have many MPs, but they only have one governor.
As per his own admission,
Yes.
when you're an MP, like when he was talking about when I was an MP in Nairobi, we were looking at where you can get a piece of land here and get it allocated to you.
Yes.
You see? And he's saying, the other MP, nominated MP in Nairobi, took this market. I'll go and ask him about that market.
Yes.
We decided together, we're going to take this market.
Yes.
And we got it.
And if some councillors kick a fuss, then they also get a portion of the market.
Given a portion of the market.
Exactly.
Now, that same person goes and finds a bigger cake.
In fact, it's not a market, it's all the markets in Kiambu.
Yes. And land. That you're a widow.
Okay, good. Pole sana.
Yeah, pole sana.
Lakini. Now, if you look at that, it isn't as though they voted for him out of thin air. It's not as though they didn't have.
This is what I'm saying.
Yes.
They had a background, and I'm saying, sure. Why this? The question, of course, comes and asks, why do Kenyans vote for clowns? And I'm saying that this is not the backdrop upon which Kenyans vote. It's not because they saw a gentleman who appeared out of thin air like a ghost. Obviously, they definitely looked and said it's possible that he could do 1, 2, or 3, and that's where the vote comes from.
He managed to convince the voter that he had their interest at heart. This was it. The stone throwing antiques, those who are that's a political tool you use at a certain point in time to show that you represented the will of the people. You may not like the antique.
Yep.
You may think it's destructive. But clearly it had a following. People thought it was a good way. Now, Waititu led from the front. This is the thing that people forget.
Yeah.
You don't get called Babayao for nothing. No, it's not as though he had more children than everybody else. That's not the reason he's being called Babayao.
Not Abraham.
No, it's not that. Okay? Neither is he Solomon. He is a man who was known to lead from the front. Whatever happened, he would take a front.
The bull by the horns.
He would fearlessly. People saw
Defender
this
of the people.
and they liked it. He was a voice of the people. He represented it, and that
It resonates with people.
Yeah, it did.
And of course, then he also comes and talks about things that ail you, and you can see this man understands
He gets
my
it.
problems.
He gets it. He
So
gets
Kenyans
it.
are not clowns. or Kenyans don't vote for clowns?
The perspective that the writer
We end up having a clown, yes, but we are not voting for this person because he's a clown.
There you
But
go.
also, when someone, let us take someone who takes humor as a tool for employment. Do you really think that person's life, even if they have a family life, that all they do is make their children laugh all the
This
time?
is the thing, of course not, and that's the thing. And even if they do appear in public and seem to, bring in jest to what they do, it's not the everlasting thing. It's not like they do it all the time. It just happens to be that one thing or two that they've said on certain periods has then been escalated to then be who they are, unfortunately. But it's not as if this is the way they are all the time. I don't think so.
If you look at even the history of most of our governors, take all the 47 governors, there are people who you can see have transitioned from this to this. Now, Waititu represents that spectrum. Councillor, MP, assistant minister, all right? And then he even moved the place he was MP from Madaraka, he moved it into the Kiambu area. Please remember, okay? It may have been a by-election.
From Embakasi.
Yes, from Embakasi. He moved, okay? One. And then transition to governor. Not many people have that track record. The person who approximates it, but with speed, was Sonko. MP, senator, governor.
Chap.
Yes.
Same as Kabogo.
Same as Kabogo.
MP, governor. in
governor.
fact.
Chap, direct. Now, the others came from being the CEOs and all sorts of backgrounds. Some were former DCs. But that political transition, meaning his life has been in politics. His public life has been in politics. Now, you have to hand it to the guy. There must be something that gentleman knew that resonated with the people who elected him. Remember, theft is also not frowned upon if it is seen that it is in moderation. Yes, and it is in moderation. Kenyans will tell you, like, angekula kidogo, meaning, why didn't he just take small bites?
Why so much at the same
We
time?
can
Even
allow
him,
you
what
to
was he
argue,
thinking?
Yes, we understand.
Kidogo.
Yes, that this theft is important in your position, but must you eat everything? You see, that is now where this gentleman got into trouble. He seemed to be eating everything.
We're taking a look at what's been covered in the headlines this morning. Of course, we've started with this Nation's editorial front page. Kenyans, what's it again? How does it read?
Well, a dear Waitito, governor sent home. But why do Kenyans vote for clowns?
Yeah. Why do Kenyans vote for clowns? It's basically an editorial by the Nation this morning. We're also taking a look at what else has been covered. Let's first see how the weather is looking like today in Nairobi, in Mombasa, in Kisumu, Eldoret. I can also take it as far as Wuhan in China and see what's happening. Good morning. It's 19 minutes after 6 o'clock.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. The weather with Spice FM.
All right, we're kicking off in Nairobi this morning. We're at 16 degrees right now. We're going to have mostly cloudy conditions through the day with a chance of rain later on. In Nakuru, currently with showers at 14 degrees, and this is going to continue through the day until early evening. Mombasa right now standing strong at 26 degrees, and it will be a mostly cloudy day and mostly overcast in certain and most parts of the town. Nyeri right now a bit chilly at 14 degrees, and it is definitely overcast with a chance of rain later on. Stepping over and looking at what's going on in Kisumu, we are experiencing showers right now, currently at 19 degrees, and it's going to be light rain showers through the day. Finally wrapping it up in Malindi today, where it is a sunny morning at 27 degrees already, and we see some overcast conditions later on, but the clouds will hold the day. That's your weather for the country. We'll see what it looks like in a short while.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
21 minutes in the Situation Room this morning. Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Andu Oko. We're taking a look at the headlines. So we'll come back to the issue of Kiambu and the Senate and what happened in the Senate yesterday later in the day. So other headlines. Tanga says no to Prime Minister and regional governments. That's what's not the top story, not the main story, but one of the headlines on the front page of the Standard this morning. Tanga says no to PM and regional governments. Basically, it's saying leaders allied to the Deputy President now declare that they will reject any plans by ODM Chief Raila Odinga's backers to create more political posts and third-tier government.
How is that news?
Yeah.
It is not. They said this again when they met in Naivasha, right?
Yes.
So this of course, the photo here is that the Deputy President had gone for a burial of Ruth Wanjiku in Limuru yesterday. And in that same meeting, former Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Mwagi Kiojori, also attended.
You know,
There's a nice photo of the two leaders. Remember, he had been touted as, remember the headline? Did the President fire Ruto's running mate?
yes, and of course the media is going to take full advantage of that. But there's a pattern that I see here. You see, if you look at, you go to page 4, the subheading, leaders accuse Raila of hijacking the good intentions of building bridges initiative. Okay, again, this isn't news. Anything that seems to happen to that particular group, it's either targeting the DP or it is Raila prompting himself to be the next president or the next prime minister or the next mayor, the next something or the other. And what is interesting is that the other side, the ODM brigade, tend to be a lot more silent than they usually are because they in turn would have fired their own salvos and said, this doesn't mean this. This is supposed to mean this.
Well, they did. Remember yesterday, the meeting in Naivasha was a plot to impeach the president.
That is one of the few times they've actually come out in the recent past. Before, the ink would barely have dried on that one when they would have come out punching, fighting, spitting
Kicking
fire,
back.
and doing all sorts of things. Meaning, it's like a game of musical promotions. Let us promote you by mentioning your name in this one.
And then we get a
Twitter
reaction
now,
from the guys.
get a reaction.
Yeah.
And so the public is kept in this perpetual frenzy of these two sides jockeying with each other. Now, this seems to have toned down. The rhetoric is there, but the back and forth has toned down. But it's something we've had for the longest time. Again,
It's a constant thing.
it is a constant tiring thing. Yes,
Politicians always have to look for something to say.
Yeah,
and
and-
none of them will talk about the locusts, for example.
Well, interesting. Let's talk about the locusts now.
1,000 acres, more than thousands of acres of vegetation.
900,000 acres is what we're looking at right now.
and counting.
And counting. And interestingly enough, locust evasion could get worse if control efforts are not upscaled. Of course, now FAO has delivered another warning as of yesterday. FAO basically says that the locust invasion could get worse if the aerial and ground control operations are not upgraded. In its latest locust update, FAO said immature swarms continue to arrive in the northeast and move throughout the northern and central areas, having invaded 13 counties to date. Of course, we're looking at swarms that have invaded Machakos, Embu, Wajir, Mandera, Marsabit, Isiolo, Samburu, Meru, Turkana, Tana River, Baringo, and Laikipia. And this is what they're saying, folks. Some swarms have started to lay eggs and will hatch in early February. And new swarms could start to form by early April in northern counties. Although a few swarms have reached the Rift Valley, they're likely to remain in the northern areas. The warning is likely to compound the already worse situation, which has seen crops, pasture, and part of forest cover destroyed on an unprecedented scale.
Okay, if you consider that a locust that is 100 days old is an octogenarian, okay,
Right,
or a centenarian, all right, and that it takes only 2 weeks for the locust to be born and to be mature. So what you're saying is that those 10 weeks that we keep hearing about is sufficient time for them to have been born, to mature, and to cause havoc.
Yes.
How long have these locusts been here?
Since end of November.
New swarms keep arriving, right?
New
Not
swarms
only do
keep-
they keep arriving,
and they're
And
laying.
new
they are
ones
laying eggs and they're newborn and they're maturing before our very eyes.
And we're told we're looking at even newer a new cycle newer cycles will still keep replicating until April. So now we know. But and this is the thing.
Jokes, man. And
There
yet we're
is a
spending money
solution.
going to Ukambani this weekend
Right.
to talk about BBI.
Yes.
And we are saying
May
that
the locusts
that the money
land
that we
on
have
them
set
during
aside,
the
200
rally.
million shillings, is it 200 million that has been set aside?
Yes.
That should be sufficient to deal with all those 7 counties and counting
But-
to deal with the locusts. We shall spend another 700 million in Ukambani this weekend.
May locusts land on them during that particular
Seriously,
BBA
because
meeting.
this is ridiculous.
Can you
because we're
imagine
talking
how
about
lovely
the
that
food.
would be?
It would be delightful. First of all, I'm just imagining how they'd be running away as those locusts landed.
Let's give it a little. I mean, let's go a little bit deeper into this. FAO has warned that if unchecked, the swarms will continue to spread and could multiply. Ready? 500 times
Yeah.
by June, as the recent heavy rains in the region created ideal breeding ground. Now, this is the thing.
But do the maths.
It's being compounded by the fact that the rains are still here. So get this, even the vegetation that had been totally eaten up by them, decimated, it will come back because of the rains.
Yep.
And they have ample feeding ground to continue. Now, this is the thing. Ground spraying is not taking place. We're dealing with the headache as opposed to dealing with the infection itself. Ground spraying is not taking place because aerial spraying is what is being concentrated on. And even that is not sufficient. Now, this is what, again, it's like they've got foghorns, microphones, I don't know what else. They're telling us and they're saying, this is what you need to do. There is a solution at this point. But still, again, twiddling our thumbs, fingers in our noses, and spraying the ones that are in the air. And those are the ones that, as TT said, centenarians. They're going to die in the next few days.
Yeah.
Focus on the ground.
If for every one of those locusts, for every pair who die, they leave aside 100.
At least 100 have hatched because the female lays between, they say she lays between 100 to 300. Chances of
Some
survival,
even say 5,
chances
but
of survival
it's
are
100
50 to 150.
Yes.
Okay? So at least 150 will survive out of the 500 that she lays.
Let's give this thing the 2-month cycle that requires for maturation, all right? Full maturation, and for them to begin breeding again. 500%. 500%.
500 times.
You only need to do that twice and you have 1,000%. Now, what do you think we have? It's not one of these situations. It actually makes the coronavirus pale into insignificance.
We're joking. The worst part is the fact that when they have left those parts of northeastern Kenya, so they've already gone all the way to Samburu, they're heading towards Uganda, we have new swarms arriving.
Yes.
But they've
So
been
the path
told,
is clear.
Remember that intelligence unit that they have?
Yep.
They've been told here, this food doesn't come to an end. Stop hustling with Ethiopia or Somalia. Just
keep
come,
moving.
just come here.
Just keep
this,
moving.
This is where it's at. Remember, we're told, well, the wind patterns will not favor. Wind patterns what? Can you foretell what the wind patterns are going to be next week
No.
Yes, you can.
with accuracy?
Yeah, that's what weather people do, man.
Wind. Did they not? You and I had this discussion, Eric, and we're chatting in the car park, and he said, in January the rains will come to an end, and I told you nothing of that sort. These rains are not coming to an end. It's not that I understand weather patterns, but I understand that you can't actually predict these weather patterns nowadays. You will have the instruments. They will see the indicators. If this happens, it means this. When they say we have weather patterns that have gone completely haywire, this is what it means. It'll show you these signs, and then it'll change to something you didn't expect or anticipate. And the constant seems to have been, it will continue raining. So, sunshine, yes, but it'll be sunshine for 30 minutes.
And then,
Bleak weather again. And then they'll tell you, well, we expect showers tomorrow. A deluge. It rains until you can't even spell your own name.
It's a little bit more than a shower.
Yes, it is. So, if you understand this, and we understand, and I'm looking at the paper and I'm looking at, there's a lady whose funeral was attended by luminaries. May God rest her soul in eternal rest, peace, and everything that goes with people who pass away. But the point is this. Because you have luminaries attending a funeral, it is good that that person was of significance or was related to someone of political significance or whatever it is. But of greater significance is that this country is actually in danger of its entire populace going hungry because of this invasion,
yes,
which is not being attended to.
our focus is elsewhere.
It's misplaced completely. Completely. And then someone wants to tell us that we are idiots for voting our fellow idiots. Isn't it?
Yes, yes.
And in this respect, they may actually have a point.
Yeah, I have a very good point. This is a situation, it's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's annoying to think about the locusts and the kind of politics that's happening around when we have serious issues. We had floods and, the rain, floods, landslide. People were displaced. Those people are still stranded somewhere. Now we have locusts that are going to decimate huge swathes of land. and impact our food security for the next 1 year. What are we doing about it? We're talking about having a referendum by June. It's more urgent. Good morning. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then the conversation continues.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Okay, so it's coming to the end of the week, but things have not changed. Mombasa Road inbound is backed from the Southern Bypass overpass. Looks like there's an incident around the Bellevue area, but that is already affecting traffic. I think we had traffic today as early as 5:15 on Mombasa Road. It had already started to build up. It already is a mess, unfortunately. This is something we're just going to have to sit out. Of course, we understand that one outlet was closed because of construction around the SGR, and we've seen this as a reason why this will continue to be for now. Pangani around the tunnel leading towards the city centre is a bit slow, but it's moving. Not so bad right now. Thika Road, of course, is not bad actually. From Roy Sambo all the way to Allsops is moving well. Let's see what happens when we hit traffic hour. So Mombasa Road seems to be the one where we have a problem. Waiyaki Way, there was some showers this morning, so that's affecting traffic a little bit, but you'll get into the city with no problem if you've already left now. Let's look at what it looks like in about half an hour. If you see an incident or you see something that we should know about to be able to spread the word, to get people moving faster, Spice FM KE on Twitter, or give us a call, 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Today, being Thursday, the pull-out in the Standard is Home and Away, the one that looks at real estate development and the issues affecting the real estate sector. So the headline, of course, in the Home and Away section today is the elegant office spaces that no one wants. The elegant office spaces that no one wants.
Well, I don't think it's that nobody wants it. Of course, the question comes in terms of that few people can afford.
Yeah.
Looking at the economic times that we're currently facing, real estate, of course, has come under fire, has come under attack. Whether it has bust is a question that people keep asking themselves. However, it of course comes to matters economy, and people don't have an extra penny to put in there. So. All these buildings coming up, but nobody to fill the spaces.
There is an oversupply, sort of, right?
Yep.
Oversupply of spaces, and many of these new flashy buildings that have come up. So it has a nice photo of this building in Upper Hill. This is the Prism Towers in 3rd Avenue. Very nice building, right? And even at night, it looks very, very good. Built with a concept of fine crystals tucked upon each other, the Prism is one of the latest architectural marvels leading Nairobi's race to the skies. There were 133-meter high building towers above the Drab community area in Upper Hill, which is known for tired government buildings. Its shiny jewel from its form is easily visible many miles away from where it stands on 3rd Avenue. But if buildings had emotions, this building would weep of loneliness beneath the shiny veneer of its 28 floors, meant for offices, are zero tenants.
0 tenants.
That's what it says.
Right. That's very interesting.
Zero tenants. It's in Upper Hill. This is just where any growing company should be. That's a phrase that its marketers used to sell it. However, almost 2 years after completion, they are yet to find a single occupant. The only activity is the buzz of a handful of government contracted workers rehabilitating the public road at the building's entrance. This 34-story building by King's Developers was launched in 2018 in a colorful ceremony presided over by the president. However, its sad tale of emptiness has now become a harsh reality for majority of developers and investors in the march to heaven. This is just one-off. So can you imagine putting up an entire building like this, much to the funfair, inviting the president to come and launch it, and then 2 years down the road, zero tenant.
Right. Not inhabited.
It also tells you something, though. It tells you if a developer has come up with a building and it's not getting a tenant, they have not even lowered what they're asking for. They are not under pressure.
Yes, maybe they are not under pressure, but if it's part of what we're calling the bust,
The boom and bust.
well, this is the boom was what built this or made these things come up in such large numbers. The bust is now what we are experiencing, because what you do when you put up such a building, you anticipate some reward.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Yes. Now, unfortunately, maybe the actuaries or people who do the maths for this sort of project didn't project far into the future to understand that the boom that they spoke of was perhaps more imaginary than it was real. Because ask yourself, who were the players in the so-called boom that we spoke of? The property market in this country.
Yep.
It's been there for over 10 years now, actually.
It's been there.
Yes.
And it's grown over years.
It
And if
has.
you look at how it has developed, right? It's not people who are just starting a building thinking long term, I need to complete this building in 3 or 4 years. It's somebody who's liquid. They've found a secure source of cash, which is being put into the development. So a building starts, and by the end of the year, the building is complete. We're basically now talking about just finishing, final touches, touch up here and there.
It is
And it's
interesting.
ready for the market.
We're in 2020.
Yeah.
Okay. Around 2006, 5, 6, 7, the complete opposite had happened. If you went to some of these leafy suburbs of Nairobi, the to let signs that you found on many of those gates were actually astounding.
Right.
It's like people had moved out. And immediately after 2007, something similar happened. You found that there were many signs that were advertising for either to buy or to let. The boom had started, and then it went on in full earnest. Now, there are those who claim that a lot of the boom was fueled by the piracy that
Illicit cash.
was witnessed along the Somali coast. Okay? Then when you had upheavals in southern Sudan and then peace ensued, it was argued again that a lot of money came from that direction.
Yeah.
But the flow of money, even in the piracy, came to an end. Remember, there's a lot of illicit trade that
was going on.
That was reported to have gone on. Gone on along the Somali coast, finding its way by road into Kenya
the
through
country.
Garissa, etc., etc., etc. And then there was the third argument that a lot of this money of ours that we say was being misappropriated, it was actually being directed to such enterprises. Now, clearly there was a market they hoped to get. There were people they hoped would take up these. One, there are people who want to improve their lifestyles, not their way of living, just lifestyles.
Lifestyles, yes.
So you want to move from one area to the other. They thought that these people would, of necessity, be sufficient to meet this.
And it was accompanied by a lot of stories about a growing middle class. So if there's a growing middle class, this means that there's a ready market.
Well, of course, and this
It's a growing market.
This fueled then the decisions that people then made for commercial,
Commercial decisions that they made.
that they would make later, because there's a growing middle class. Obviously, this means that people are a little bit more buoyant. They have access to credit.
Yep.
They have access to funds that they would essentially use for their businesses. And so then to enter into the real estate market made sense, because they would think that, yes, money would come along and people would essentially come and rent out these places.
Yep.
There was also the forecast that there was growth in the business sector, and that more and more entrepreneurs were coming in, whereby they were opening up their own companies and they needed office space. Again, this information then fueled the decisions that they would then make to enter into the real estate business. Things have changed.
Lo and
clearly.
behold.
No, the
Things
real
have
estate
changed.
business, by the way, Ndu, has always been there. You know, this is high end that we're speaking of.
Yeah.
All right? And the reason why you have slumlords and people who invest in the low rent areas is because there's the demand for such dwellings actually exceeds that of the ones we're speaking of right now.
Of course, yes.
And also, if I live in a leafy suburb and I'm unable to pay for whatever rent that in the place I live in, I'm not likely to move to a higher rent area, but rather to a lower
You
rent area.
downgrade, yeah.
So people always coalesce in that particular sector.
This is true. However, even along those lines, from what we've seen now, it has gotten difficult even for the would-be high-enders to be able to keep up with the times. It's difficult for them as
It's
well.
hard, yes,
We're talking about hard times. Whereas previously, if we're looking at the last 5 or 10 years, it would not have been a problem for these individuals to fill up these buildings.
Even in businesses,
You would have people knocking down the doors. Is there space? But
Here,
now
for
we
example,
don't have that situation
we don't
anymore.
have. Here,
No.
here's another story still in the same home and away, looking at the real estate sector. Stalls craze sweeps across the city. Now, it tells you about businesses and how businesses are thinking. And
Right.
a quick search on Google about stalls in Nairobi CBD will yield over 64,000 hits, a testament to the growing popularity of the tiny business premises. The dying down of the mall's frenzy has given way to the stalls trend in the city center. If you actually go to the CBD, and it's over the years, as big businesses were moving out of the CBD, going to Upper Hill and Westlands and those other areas, it's not other big businesses that were replacing them in the CBD.
No.
It's small businesses. So you go and find a whole building like Kimenti House has just been subdivided into small unit stalls
And that's what has happened. Yeah.
selling, small wares. Basically, hawkers have gone into premises. This is it. So you find somebody who sells mobile accessories. Somebody else sells mobile accessories. Somebody else sells mobile accessories.
Right, because where in the
The
city
same
center you would never be able to get anything in terms of space for less than 150,000 shillings.
Yep.
Now you're able to get rent for as low as 7,000 shillings in the city.
Even
and
lower.
And
Even
you
lower.
have a stall whereby, you're making it work. People can't afford it anymore, and that's what we're looking at. So of course this is what has raised the question, that has the real estate bubble then gone bust? Is this the case? Because we have huge spaces in the city that nobody's taking up, not because they don't want to or because they wouldn't like to be in these areas. They just cannot afford it.
I think the supply was never going to be able to meet. No, the demand was never going to
But
be
there's
able
also
to meet
another
that supply.
factor that has contributed very significantly to this, the rise of the counties. There are many people who had businesses within the city and realized that a similar business could be replicated in the county of their choice, and with the likelihood of making profit greater than in the city, and with the competition less than what you'd actually face in
So
the
they've
city.
moved
This is
the
true. I mean, all you have to
Yes.
do is take a trip, outside of the city, and you get to Nakuru, you get to Naivasha, Nakuru, and then you go further. If you go in that direction, Eldoret, Kisumu, you're able to see whereby a lot of these establishments have actually mushroomed where they were not there before because of devolution. A lot of people have left Nairobi and have gone to set up business outside. This should have been an indicator for those who are putting up these establishments in Nairobi also, to understand that you just don't have the same business population taking up these spaces that you previously did.
But remember, the same publication had a story last week. Was it last week or the week before? On Nakuru. And this one building, that's, swanky new building that has come up in Nakuru town, which
Empty?
is also empty.
Empty.
So you're seeing the same developers who are going and thinking big, even in the counties, and also are still suffering.
And Nakuru, for the longest time, was touted as one of the fastest growing towns in the country.
Yes.
And if you pass through Nakuru, you realize this wasn't a tale; it was actually
It was true. It was growing.
So it's clear. I mean, it would be nice to say that it's not suffering, it's just a kink, but this is definitely something that needs to be paid attention to, in the fact that, the economy is it's giving people a bit of a kick in the side here.
My thinking is that it's not really busting. It's just correcting itself.
I don't think it's
And like we're
busting
talking about
per
those
se.
number of years where there was a lot of illicit inflow of cash from around the region. All our neighbors
That's what
or
fed
bringing
into
their money
right.
into the country, not just even locally. So we have South Sudanese, Somalia, DRC, Uganda, Burundi. All those people who are trying to find ways of investing their money, and
In
they
a
cannot
safe
take it
haven.
in safe havens, and they cannot take it to those European markets where there are too many questions. It's easy. Come, find a partner, buy out CT Muga from his place in Kilimani, put up a high rise, and that's what has happened. You see very many of these buildings coming up, and it's. I think that's what is happening. It's just a correction of the market.
I actually tend to agree with you, Eric. What we had previously, if you ask me, is what represented a false situation. It was hyped, it was buoyed, it appeared, it was too good to be true, in short. Now, it's evening out. And now we begin to see the reality of the market and what actually exists. Yes. And markets, by the way, tend, in an earlier time when we had something called the coffee boom.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
This is a long time ago. In the 70s and 80s. people, there was a lot of business. Why? There's a lot of money moving around. When we had a situation where, for instance, again, the tea industries had its boom. Anytime there's a lot of money that's available, you see this. In the Kibaki era, the boom was that they opened the government purses, meaning it then became easy for people to actually get access to money.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of money. And because of that, there was a lot of activity. Now, we are in an era where the money circulates among a very small group of people. The trickle-down effect, as we call it, doesn't or hardly takes place. And then there is the almighty misappropriation of funds.
Doing its thing.
And so you have a situation where what we are now reading about was always likely to take place.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it has. If you talk to people in the property market, they'll tell you it is bad.
It is bad.
And they've been saying it is bad for some time.
For some time, yes.
Yes.
Stories have actually even been published just the other day. There was this is a market where people are defaulting on their mortgages.
Yeah.
And it's an auctions market.
It is. And again, that is the wrong way to approach this thing. This is where our banks get it wrong. Do not assume that I actually like talking about banks because I dislike them. Oh, no. There are many banks that are actually very, very, very good and actually do what they said they would do. But there are many others who take advantage of their clients, and they better the few who are in authority rather than their own workers and their partners in business who are their clients.
Let's come back and talk about that. It's 13 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. Remember, the live stream is up. Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Good morning.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94
In the
point.
Situation Room in this hour, we're looking at the top story on the home and away segment of the Standard, which is saying elegant office spaces that no one wants. Basically, it's looking at the real deal in the real estate and what's happening now around the country about land and property and investment in properties. But there's something else that you're seeing about concerning land as well, Ndu.
Well, it's
that is
interesting
not necessarily
concerning land.
related to home
Not
and away.
necessarily this land that we're looking at, but, talking about landslides that happened last year. Of course, we looked at certain areas of the country, and we seem to have forgotten that there are quite a number of people who then are living in camps where they were settled, or rather resettled after the landslides happened. We're looking at a crack that stretched for over 4 kilometers, and this was developed after the heavy rains last year. But now these individuals are asking if they can go back home because they're bemoaning camp life, and they ask for a nod to either return or be resettled. Now, obviously, they will not be able to return to where they went because literally landslide, right? But according to them, the force was so intense that it caused a crack which ripped apart huge boulders that lay along its path. The crack also sunk some of their farms. Now, interestingly enough, and CT might like this, a team of government experts that had been expected from the Mines and Geology Department to assess the destruction and advise on risks is yet to visit the ground, apparently. This is since October last year. The affected families are still camping at the schools, and in some cases, mostly schools, even after schools reopened last week, these families are still camping out in school halls, and with no hopes of being given alternative land. Many say the government has neglected them. And I quote, some say, we have been here for 2 months now. Life has not been easy. We depend on well wishes for food and clothing. People with their children have not been able to return to school. And of course, here they are being crowded in school halls again, where schools have already reopened. The interesting thing here is that the assessment of the damaged areas has still not been done by government after the promise was made to have been to do so. Of course, there were also promises of resettlement, this was supposed to be a temporary situation, and resettlement was supposed to have been done after that. Remember very clearly, government spokesman Colonel Oguna told us that everything was under control, and also talked about the fact that some resettlement efforts were being made. But here we see that actually this has not happened yet. Schools have opened. We still have makeshift camps happening in school areas, and this is what we see now. Geologists from Nairobi yet to assess affected areas and give a report on the way forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. So when is the next BBI?
Right.
It's more important.
It's more important. Saturday.
Yeah.
In 2 days.
Right. And the BBI around that area of, for example, West Pokot is going to be in Eldoret.
You know, the unfortunate thing about the BBI, these meetings and the direction they're taking, the message that seems to be, sent forth is that political situations, movements, interests trump everything else.
Everything else.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's something of interest here. In this very same studio, we've talked about how it is that very many of the programs that the government has, well, two things. One, they don't talk about it in the open, so you don't know they exist. And two, that people are poorer than we realize. Now, a World Food Program and the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, have come up with a report that 9 out of 10 Kenyans are living in poverty. And are
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. 9 out of 10.
90% of Kenya is
Yep.
poor.
Yeah, it's poor. And are in need of state welfare assistance. Now, against this backdrop, just so that you understand what a wonderful country we are in and how we come up with such wonderful programs, the government has these programs for cash transfers.
Yes.
They have cash transfer for orphans and vulnerable children. I'm sure most Kenyans don't even know this exists. What they know is the next one, cash transfer for the older persons.
Yep.
That one they know.
Yep.
Then there's cash transfer for persons with severe disabilities.
Yes.
Did you know that exists?
Yes.
Okay. They have cash transfer for hunger, safety. Okay. Do they have that one? Do you know that one? Okay. Then they have cash transfer for asset programs. Now, what you've spoken of, this one here.
Asset programs.
Yes. Okay. You combine the hunger that the people who suffered from these floods, they've lost assets in terms of their building. There is a program to transfer
There's
cash.
money that actually should
It's
go
allocated.
there.
It is set aside for these. Now, in Northeastern Province, they even have a cash transfer for extreme weather events. Now, are floods not extreme weather events?
They are.
Landslides, more no less.
And these things have been in operation since 2013. Now, you tell me. They may have been planned previously, but they were enacted in 2013.
And they have been rolling. I
Yes.
actually know people who
Yes.
have worked in
Yes.
the
Yes.
Ministry of Social Services,
Yes.
and they'll tell you, yes, we have all these programs in the ground. What happens is the disbursement of the cash is where a little bit of a challenge, right?
I have senior relatives, meaning senior to myself. And they are the people
Who therefore qualify for.
Yes, and the ones I get data from, because I will ask.
Mmepata ile pesa?
Yes. The month when they call you and tell you, I'm doing badly, they haven't received. And
Yes.
it is not 1 month. It's sometimes several months. So you
It's
wonder.
a couple of months, yes.
Yes. So how is this money helping this person?
It comes in tranches, like it comes quarterly.
It may come quarterly, but you would
And then it
disappears.
disappears.
And they do not give you the arrears. They just pick up from when they left. So in between, where does that money go to? But the thing that alarms me about this report is what they say. When they talk about poverty, remember, the UN has a threshold that they consider that if what your earnings are below that particular threshold, then it is assumed that you are poor.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, of course, if we look at this and align it with what the World Bank is telling us, and again, you heard me say it isn't the first time they're telling us, essentially they're telling us we're about to shut shop. Won't happen.
You're a failed state.
Won't happen. They've said it before, and then they have given us programs that we should follow, like when they asked us and advised us to sell all our assets because the government was not, as they said, in the business of providing housing for their people. My goodness, it set us on a trajectory that we have had difficulties recovering from.
Right.
Essentially, they told the state, you have license to just give away land, give away houses as you see fit. Now, can you see where this will go with cronyism within a government system?
Of course.
Where will it end?
There's no end at this point.
No,
really, there isn't.
And everything that
Can't
they
see
do
one.
cannot be said to be illegal. It isn't. And they'll tell you World Bank.
Yeah.
Yes, but then when you consider the problems we've recently had at the Treasury, and that our principal secretary worked for the World Bank for the longest time, I think it isn't difficult to understand how it is we ended up with such problems in our Treasury.
They're thinking, right?
It's thinking. It's thinking. It's some theoretical thinking that they assume will help a third world wanting country like ours, and which rarely does. Structural adjustment program, how well did that one work? And it was talked about, my friend. It was sold to us. I have never seen anything with a tougher sell than that particular one. How far did it go? How far did it take us? Did we improve? The Bangladeshis who had economic solutions, it wasn't World Bank solutions. No, they had their own economists and people who understood, like the people who began the Green Bank. People who actually understood what the country needed because they were from there.
It was homegrown.
Yes.
But had they worked for the World Bank or IMF?
No. Most of them were actually teachers. They're professors. They're people who had they've had a financial background. But if you look at them, they actually taught the subject.
They were teaching locally.
They understood it. They were people who understood it from a theoretical perspective. And this was their attempt to now make this theory they've been teaching practical.
What's a Green Bank?
Well, if you look at the history of Bangladesh, it was what we would call an enterprise that seeks to assist the lower income bracket of people. Not SMEs, completely lower bracket. A system that combines the idea of the SACCOs together with the needs and the businesses, the small businesses that people were already involved in. Getting to expand them, getting to understand their needs, how they can pay, the culture around them, and what to them constitutes a good system for payment. Meaning, not just homegrown, but put in place in a way
localized.
It was localized.
Completely.
And that is why the gentleman who were behind it, he went ahead to be acclaimed by the Nobel committees who give out these awards. Because it worked.
So is it like table banking?
It was a combination of many things. It was a combination. Remember, it's not as though the economy didn't have their own form of banking and that they didn't have an informal sector.
Yeah.
But it's looking at the successes of these things and putting them together in a way that's acceptable. That, in essence, is what they did. And it worked. If it didn't work, it would never have been acclaimed. There are many projects that people start off and the success rate is not worth shouting about. So people don't get to know about it. It's a success story when a very large number of people have benefited. Case in point is M-Pesa, a success story. It doesn't matter how you look at it.
It is a
success story.
It has worked, yes.
It has, and it not just worked.
It continues
It
working.
continues to work. And if you look at what it has done, it has even replaced what you call formal banking when it comes to money matters.
Yes.
Now, if you're talking about something that can work, this is it.
One of the success stories of M-Pesa is actually covered in the Standard today. Automation increases health cash to 957 million. This is patients who deposit money for medical services through the bank and M-Pesa. So you see, it's already helping revenue to be collected by county government's health department through this simple tool.
Actually, to the point where you can even pay your taxes through this tool.
Yes.
There's hardly anything you cannot use.
I renew for Nairobi City County. I renew my business permits just through M-Pesa. Go online, it gives you an M-Pesa code, pay.
Consider even driving license.
There's
hardly anything in this
You can't do with it.
Well, you can actually transact almost anything that you want in this country.
Parking nowadays
Yes.
is also just pay via M-Pesa.
Very true. So tell me, that is a success story. Now here we have these programs, lovely, wonderful, well thought out, implemented, not really functional. Because if they were functional, all these problems that we keep hearing about, we would have heard of them coming into action. Because these people who've been displaced need this infusion of money. They need this intervention. But you don't hear of this. Now, if we're being given these figures that 9 out of 10 Kenyans are poor, I am inclined to believe that we are poor.
We actually are poor.
Yes.
Coming up to 7 o'clock, this is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at traffic.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Spice FM. Nakuru. Traffic.
Okay, of course, answers are being asked in terms of what really is happening on Mombasa Road. It is quite terrible because people have spent the last hour trying to get from the railways junction to Cabanas. So, guys, it's quite something, and something to behold today. You don't really know what has been happening. We know there's been some road closure, but it shouldn't affect it in the way it has happened right now. The team all roundabout is terrible today. There are showers that are happening right now. It is raining, and it's a bit unclear as to what's causing that problem there. But of course, it's affecting traffic coming from Langata Road and then joining the direction towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout as well as Bagathi Way. All right, Wayaki Way jam started at the 84 Kabete, but it is moving. It's moving slowly, but it's moving all the same. Coming off Thika Road, also not so bad. It's moving today, but it is raining, so the roads are not clear. The white lines are not clearly visible. So please drive safely, approach with caution, and take it easy because the roads are already slippery. Everywhere we look seems to be a bit congested today. So we're combining traffic hour with showers. So please be careful on the roads today. You find an alternative, let us know on Twitter, SpiceFMKE, and we'll try and keep you moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
It's 2 minutes after 7 o'clock. Good morning, and how you doing? This is a Situation Room. Broadcasting from Nairobi, 94.4. We are in Mombasa, 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret, 96.7, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. We're also live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke. We're live streaming on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. SpiceFMKE are the handles for all those platforms, as well as Instagram, SpiceFMKE. Now, of course, this morning, Kiambu does not have a governor officially. Right? So because the governor of Kiambu has been impeached, was impeached by the County Assembly of Kiambu, and the Senate, which is the body mandated to confirm or reject that impeachment, has confirmed that impeachment of the governor of Kiambu County, Ferdinand Waititu Babayao. What this means is that the deputy governor of Kiambu, Mr. James Nyoro, is now allowed to take oath of office and become the substantive governor. And then, of course, he appoints his own deputy, assuming that Babayao goes down without a fight and says, forget it, let me go back to doing my other things. I have a family to take care of. I can survive in this country. But this is, of course, assuming that he does nothing. The most likely thing that he's going to do, and we even discussed this, is he's likely to go to court to challenge this entire process, because that's what he was doing at the Senate. He was challenging the entire process of his impeachment, saying he was not given an opportunity to defend himself in the county assembly, saying that the charges leveled against him in the county assembly were fraudulent, saying as well that the constitution of the assembly on the day of the impeachment vote was wrong, because you should have had a certain number of members and that threshold was not met. All those were the arguments that he took to the Senate, and the Senate members, when they were voting, they did not consider that. They said, all right, yes, we've heard you, but we believe that you should go home. The most likely thing is that the Ferdinand Waititu will go to court to block this, just like we saw in the case of Embu Martin Ombora going to court, taking it all the way to the Supreme Court, and which the Supreme Court reinstated him. Now, the issue here is that Kiambu has not had a substantive governor for long, ever since Governor Waititu was charged and the court directed that he does not access office, and the deputy governor started acting. The people of Kiambu County have not basically received the services that they should receive. And we even raised this previously. We've said there are workers who need to be employed. The county government does not have a public service board that's in place, properly constituted to look at the welfare of workers. So workers cannot be employed. We have some COs, that's chief officers or equivalent of principal secretaries in various key departments that don't have serving COs. This means that there are departments that are not able to function properly because we don't have COs. If CECs who are mostly aligned to Governor Waitito started fighting or having a cold war with the deputy governor, we'll have also issues with how the county itself is being managed. And I'm saying this morning that for the sake of the people of Kiambu who woke up one morning, spent hours on the queue, they chose a governor, this governor was in place, this governor for one reason or another has found himself in trouble, but they also chose a deputy governor for such instances. If the governor goes to court to challenge the outcome of yesterday's vote in the Senate, the court should also allow the deputy governor to continue serving as a substantive governor pending hearing of Waitito's case. If Waitito wins the case, he can be reinstated as governor. But in the meantime, let's give Governor Nyoro, Deputy Governor Nyoro, full powers to act as governor.
And this, of course, begs the question, at what point do we actually declare that seat vacant?
Vacant?
It's not vacant as we speak.
Well, at what point does...
The Senate is not a court of law.
Yes.
What does the declaration that has been made by the Senate mean? What is the import?
What it means is that now, once the Senate has declared this, the Senate Speaker issues a notice. And this notice basically, I think, should go, we'll find out shortly, it should go somewhere. But the vote by the Senate is final.
What we do
All
know,
we just need now is formal communication from the Senate.
Actually, what happens in this case is
Yes.
that James Nyoro is set to be sworn in as governor following the impeachment of his boss yesterday during the second and final day of the special sitting. However, this will only happen if Governor Waitito fails to challenge the impeachment in court. All right? They upheld the 3 charges raised by the members of the Kiambu County Assembly as Senate yesterday. By virtue of the Senate decision, Governor Waitito will cease to hold office in line with Section 13. Now, by operation of Article 182 of the Constitution, Dr. Nyoro becomes Kiambu's new governor for the remainder of the term. Again, now, this is now where there's a little bit of confusion because, okay, how soon then does Waitito have to then go to court and challenge this, if he will? Is there a time and say within 7 days, if you don't do this, then we will go ahead and swear in this gentleman? But according to what we know so far, if he doesn't challenge this impeachment, then Dr. Nyoro will be sworn in and he will remain governor until the end of this term, which is somewhere mid-2022.
Yes, it is. And I think the law does not anticipate a matter that has been dealt with under the constitutional organs to be taken to court. Basically, it's just the same way. It does not say that you will become an MP if your opponent does not challenge your election in court. It basically just allows, if the process has gone through the due process, which is county assembly, votes, Senate, votes, that's it. Going to court is now it's you seeking your redress. It cannot hold people hostage just because they're saying, allow this person to go to court. Because he can decide, I'm not going to court yet. Until 2021, August.
So you're saying that this declaration, for all intents and purpose, means that seat, Ferdinand Waitito is no longer governor of Kiambu.
Waitito is no longer governor of Kiambu. All it needs is formalization of
Yes.
And as we're told the other day by some lawyer, it doesn't mean that he's out. He's out.
He's out.
And according to the law, the person who should now be governor is his deputy.
Yes.
So what we're waiting for is the formalization of it.
Yes. Yeah. And also, then interestingly, after that, then the deputy who then takes on position as governor then has 60 days to name his deputy in all of this process. So he's expected to step in and, carry on with duties as normal. We're probably going to see a challenge to this, and it is probably going to be hinged on process.
Yeah.
What
is-
Tito will hinge his challenge. This is what I said. Probably
Possibly.
he will hinge, if anything, because looking at what legs he has to stand on and the numbers with which he was, it was an overwhelming vote in terms of favor for upholding of the charges. If we see anything, it'll be that he will hinge it on process, in the sense that he was not able to see to present his case before before the county assembly at that point.
Yes.
And that is what he will take to the court. And we know that also the court tends to, in some cases, in quite a number of cases, then link their judgments to process.
What's likely to happen here is the Babayao goes to court, files an injunction and says, please hold everything, hold that process, because I have something to complain about. I don't think I was treated fairly. And then the court will issue that injunction, will agree and say, yes, hold that process because
Let's
this one
hear
has
you.
come to us. Now, that's what I'm saying. If you say hold that process, it means that we continue with status quo, which is we have a governor who is not in office and we have a deputy who is in office but has no
You
power.
have a you have a county in limbo.
You have a county in limbo. This means that the people of Kiambu are going to continue suffering. By June this year, we'll need the financial year will be coming to a close. We'll be getting into a new financial year. Who is going to be preparing the new budgets? Who's going to assent to the new budget? How are we going to operate as the people of Kiambu who woke up early in the morning and went to vote for a governor and they want a county government?
Do you
that works
actually
for them?
think that the accusations that have been leveled against the governor are the only accusations that could be leveled against him? There's a reason why I'm asking this, and I will say it. When somebody is faced with such a situation such as the one that the governor of Kiambu is now faced, he has an opportunity to negotiate. Remember, we had the DPP in this office.
In the studio.
Oh, studio.
Yes.
Studio.
It's our office, yes. But yeah, go ahead.
Studio. I'm repeating so that it takes studio.
It takes root.
Studio. So, and he mentioned something regarding a plea bargain. Remember, there are other cases that the DCI also leveled against the governor. And these cases have not, should we say, they haven't been completed yet. So there yet exists an opportunity for him to negotiate. Only he knows, and the DPP and the DCI know exactly what it is they could have accused him of.
Yep.
And they probably said, look, let's not take 20 things. Let's just take 2 things, which
things
which
that
or
we can
3, which
use.
we are sure these ones will take us where we want to go. But it doesn't mean that the other things that he's been accused of have gone away. So I'm saying, Babayao has an opportunity to negotiate. He can go to court if he so wishes, and the court will arrive with its own decision. But if you want this matter to come to an end, remember,
Play ball.
find a way. There's a statement that I read here, and it tells me that this is a man who understands, and this is how it reads. It is very unfair for someone who has worked hard to be removed just like that, unceremoniously. It may be because I am not in the right political divide, but tomorrow, with politics, I can change and be with you.
It was very interesting what he was telling these senators in Parliament.
Yes, guys.
In fact, he was addressing him as fellow politicians.
Guys,
like-
you know how this thing is played.
Yes.
Today it may appear.
Today,
like-
you guys are sitting there thinking I'm tanga, so you're gonna kick me out just to prove a point.
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow I could be
I could be
with you.
Kieleweke.
With you.
Yeah.
But the other message is, if you guys handle this thing a little more gently,
I could.
even tomorrow I can be Kieleweke.
I could be persuaded to join you. The other thing is, he was telling them, remember, some of you guys want to become governors. You will be here. I can guarantee
Exactly.
you.
You're going to
the
be here.
county assemblies will do you what they've done me. You will be here. And maybe I'll be a senator. I'll be there. So
It's interesting because, I mean, I thought about it. I think we had this conversation and we said to ourselves, okay, look, this is a litmus test for Senate to prove what a lot of people have been saying wrong. All right. Now, it seems that a lot of people then would be justified in their sentiment when we saw what happened yesterday, because I think the vote was overwhelming. I can't remember what the numbers were, but overwhelming in favor of upholding these charges. We thought that, and I believe even when Speaker of the Senate, Ken Losaka, was here, and we asked him this, I said, look, don't we see a situation whereby senators would want to then protect themselves in the future for this very same thing that we're saying, that at some point you will be here, and we would want to, you would want you yourself also to be protected. But it seems to have gone against the grain of that belief in every way, shape, or form. In this case, whereby we're saying
that is one point of view.
Yeah.
It's a view that has been expressed by many Kenyans, and they have heard it loud
and clear in this case, that we don't care. Really, set from the Senate, we don't care. Whether I will be in this position today or tomorrow, it just seems that the rule of law in this case is what has been
Political
upheld.
expediency.
Could it be?
Yes.
Could it be?
Oh, yes. It was very clear.
You seem to see a lot of good in politicians.
Today being Thursday,
in
January
theory,
30th.
In theory, there's a lot of good.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
In practice, with the politicians we have in Kenya, no, sorry.
Let's live in Utopia.
They made a decision that, yes, looked at, the charges that have been brought, yes, they are weighty charges. But they also said, look, everything else, this man came here and challenged our own quorum. First of all, Waitito's lawyers came here to say that we are sitting unprocedurally. Come to question us why we are sitting here today.
Just
Who do
because
you
of that,
think you
we'll
are?
do you in.
You.
Okay.
So we are here. We didn't have quorum on the day that we met. We are here unprocedurally. We should not even be listening to this matter at all.
All right.
Hey.
So they went and gathered, and they told him, "We will give you the gift of sight. You will see.
You will see. If you open your eyes now,
You will see.
honor. Angalia.
Look and see."
Look and see what we're going to do.
Oh yes, it was a big one. It was a big statement being made.
Don't
by
ever
the Senate.
assume that public opinion doesn't help sway the decisions that our courts and even our politicians make. Do not assume they don't. Just like you can assume that the things that politicians do is perhaps under the belief or misplaced belief that the public agrees with it. Very rarely will politicians go out and out to actually do something that they think is completely unpopular. Very rarely. Very, very rarely.
They'll
So,
try
yeah,
and be
no, I
on the
think-
right side of
Yes,
history.
they will.
They want to be on the right side of the general, a larger percentage of the population, of course.
Yeah.
And I
Their
think
career,
which is their career at the end of the day. And I think the sentiment was clear here that, look, are there murmurings, or is the wind blowing in a certain direction that maybe there's a possibility that this man did what he's actually being accused of? And here the decision lies in your hands to actually do something about it. And do something about it in this sense is removing him from
Do you
office.
really think these politicians were wondering whether this guy did what he did?
No, I'm talking about from the side of the people. Okay? So
you
now
think the
here,
people don't know what Waitito did?
good Lord, so you let me even finish what I'm trying to say.
No, I'm actually...
First of all, is Waitito married?
Yes. Or do we think he's married?
He told us, those people that you're saying, my wife and my daughter, those are just relatives.
Under the bus. And when one got out from the other side of the bus, another bus came by. Dude, I apologize for plummeting you with all these questions, but I'm asking valid questions. Do you really think that there's any politician who doesn't understand what governors do in the counties?
They know.
Do you think that citizens of that county don't know what's actually going on? That's really what I'm asking.
This
No, just
decision,
the
this is what I
blatant.
was trying to say. This decision, they did not make it with the sentiment or the thought of the people of Kenya at the heart. They did not.
It was their own.
It was their own.
Self-preservation.
100%.
Send a message.
They were sending a message loud and clear.
Let's
and
take
it
a
was
look at-
not for the voters or the population to understand. No.
Tell us about the weather.
wasn't.
It's raining cats and dogs outside. 18 minutes past 7.
87.9 Spice FM. Mombasa. The weather with Spice FM.
All right. Cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 17 degrees today. There are showers in different parts of the city. Take a look at Nakuru right now, and also experiencing showers this morning at 15 degrees. Likely to warm up later, but for now, this is what we see. Looking at Mombasa, where it's overcast in certain parts, but at 26 degrees, holding warm. Nyeri right now, where we have cloudy conditions and possibilities of showers later on, but right now, just cloudy at 16 degrees. Taking a look at Kisumu this morning, where we do have showers that are going to last the whole day, holding strong at 19 degrees, and Malindi is quite warm today, right now at 25 degrees. A possibility of showers later on, but mostly overcast. That's what it looks like around the country with your weather.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice
It's
FM,
7:20.
Nairobi.
Good morning, and how are you doing? Thank you very much for choosing the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Eric Latif. We have Nduoko and CT Muga. We're live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Spice FM KE, at Spice FM KE on Twitter, and our website, www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as broadcasting from Nairobi to the world and around the country on terrestrial streams. So, we're discussing the impeachment of Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waitito. This happened last night in the Senate. Basically, the Senate confirmed what the County Assembly of Kiambu had done by impeaching their governor, and the Senate listened to the man for 2 days and came out and voted. So, let's just look back at the process in the Senate. First, last week when they were called in, and they were told by the Speaker that we have two options here, how we can handle this matter. One, we can either have an 11-member committee, or two, we can have the committee of the whole house. So the Senate Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen had proposed, and he moved a motion to have an 11-member committee, and he said this is the best route to take. Chairman of that committee was supposed to be opposition lawmaker. This is the Kakamega senator, and then of course the deputy was going to be the Nakuru senator and other members. And then the matter was put to the vote in the Senate. Things turned on their head. Senators said, we don't want committee. We want all of us.
Even as we watched.
Yes.
And certain individuals who had sided with Murkomen, suddenly what I liked was not just the change of the tune of the song, but the entire song changed.
Completely.
You know, I told you.
I had told you, my friend. When this was moved, it was moved by the Senate Majority Leader, Murkomen. It was seconded by the Senate Minority Leader, James Orengo. And then it went to discussions here and there, a lot of lobbying, of course, and it was put to a vote. The issue of vote, when the vote was now being discussed, that, you know what, in fact, Orengo is the one who said, Mr. Speaker, can we just take a few minutes recess so we can marinate on this matter before we continue the discussion? Came out of that, Senate Minority Leader says, but you know, Murkomen, I had told you, this committee route was not the best way to go. The person who was supposed to be the chair of the committee, when it came to voting for the committee, he said, no, I'm voting against the committee.
You know, that is what you call not just thinking on your feet, but moving on your feet.
Completely.
And quite swiftly so.
Yes.
The reason you have a head and a shoulder
Yes.
and a neck is so that you can turn your head.
It's purely for
And
directions.
helping and asking your mouth to be enjoined in that process.
Yeah, you have a neck above your shoulder, so that you can turn your head and see.
But what is of interest, even as I observe this, is something else has happened. Something that we had in 2013 has happened here. Mm-hmm. It's called the new face and identity of a tyranny of numbers. Mm-hmm. It is upon us. Because this vote was overwhelming. You know, it wasn't at a slim margin.
Yes.
Mm-mm. It wasn't a slim margin at all. So it means that people who had previously appeared to be foes have now become friends and they're now agreeing. The story of our politics. The never-ending story of our politics.
It keeps changing.
Yes, enemies today, friends tomorrow, God knows what's tomorrow, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you see this change in the Senate, rest assured that you can see this very, very change also happening in the lower house.
In the National Assembly.
Expect it.
It'll happen across all our political divides. So the issue of Tanga versus, shall we call it Tanga versus BBI, right?
Yes. That's what actually it's come out to.
That's what it is
This
actually
it.
right now.
Tanga versus handshake.
Don't be
Yes.
surprised if you find some Tanga followers within the handshake.
Defecting.
It
Oh,
mean,
it
and
won't be
quite
surprising at
swiftly
all.
So. I mean, it will not be
we'll
surprising.
see some
It's, in fact,
Tanga
you
defections.
expect it. Right. And I think that a lot of what we see, which should not, I mean, if we're going to live in utopia for just 5 minutes, allow me, it should not be the case here, where we say that we're
Take
making...
10 minutes.
Okay. We're taking...
Those are many. Are we going to survive?
No.
putting up a lodging in a utopia? Absolutely.
Utopia is a nice place
It's
to
a nice
dwell
place
from
to be every now and then before you have to come back to
You know,
reality.
a dreary morning like this one.
No.
Please carry on.
Right. So, I mean, this what it should be is that the man should have been convicted of these charges, impeached rather,
Yeah.
because of the fact that he committed these crimes, as it were, that were leveled against him. It should not have been a conviction because people were trying to align themselves politically.
Yep.
The kind of convictions that we see, the slap on the wrist that has been given, should come about because he actually did it, because there was mismanagement of funds, because there was a misappropriation, because there was abuse of office. Because if we look at the way in which the country is being run, you don't want a governor who then has a taint on his image about what he did or didn't, or what he or she did not do or should have done when it comes to the protection of the people, when it comes to the development of the area over which you've been given this authority or this jurisdiction. This is what we should have been looking at. Unfortunately, what we see is something totally different. That not because what I saw that he did was necessarily wrong or unacceptable, but because I'm trying to align myself politically, or because I want to remain relevant in certain spheres, this is why I made the decision that I made. What it does is that it also throws a lot of other people into some kind of fear.
Yep.
That, whether I would be innocent or guilty in the future over something that I did, if somebody is looking for some kind of political alignment or political relevance, they are going to come together against me. And this is not the way it should be.
The other sad side of
Wait,
this is...
let me ask, how should it be?
It should be that if...
Principle.
It should be on principle.
Okay.
It should be... remember, we're in a utopia for 10 minutes. You allowed me. It should be on principle that we say...
I asked a question and you had exited utopia. So now, back to the real world.
No. We've not left.
Oh, you want us to stay there?
Yes,
Still there.
we have said
Okay.
10 minutes. So
All right,
just...
stay
It should
there.
be utopian.
Don't be like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Vote on principle.
On principle.
The
that have
downside-
we looked
the
at the
downside of-
evidence that has been presented to
Yes.
us? Have we looked at everything that, in terms of this entire process, was there really mismanagement? Is there enough to point to the fact that there was? As opposed to, I don't like the guy because you know what? It really doesn't matter. Was he doing his job or was he not? Upon that is what the decision should be made if we're living in utopia. And if we're going to exit, all right. Now.
There are those that actually voted based on principle. Like I'm sure there are some senators who sat there and the arguments that they were making were based on principle, purely on principle, looking at what you've done with your county, looking at the trust that has been bestowed upon you by your people and what you have done with that trust. If you've, among the accusations was that one of disinheriting a widow, right? Saying, went to a widow and, took over their farm. This, some were saying, this is completely wrong. The other one is, now let's look at this misappropriation of resources. This is a direct one where we are saying that, yes, your direct family members were involved in procurement. Now, this is so blatant. That whatever else we talk about, surely you don't do it this way. Because this is complete disregard. This is an insult.
If that
to your
alone,
people.
if that alone is what we're going to focus on, that is enough then to say that you should not be in this position by virtue of the fact that you operated in this manner.
We're still in utopia.
Right. So I think
No,
we're going to
that's
live
all
there
right.
for a while today.
So
We've
let's
taken
come
up,
out.
we've paid rent. Okay. So
Mekalia deposit.
yes, if we're there for a while, let's be one of the few who've taken up some of those floors, even if anybody else can't
The-
afford it. Right.
The
Let's come
issue
out of
here
it.
is that is not. I don't think it's that Waititu is doing something that other governors don't do. Some are just cleverer than others. Some understand the laws that govern this sort of work is this. They adhere to it.
Yeah.
Even if it is I want to benefit, let me look at how I can benefit without
breaking the
the
law.
law. Or ensuring that even if it raises eyebrows, they'll be raised slightly and then they'll go back to normal.
Or I can have a logical explanation to this.
Yes,
Whatever
exactly.
question you ask, I'll tell you, no. Look, there's an arm's length dealings between me and these people who have enjoyed
Yes.
this procurement. This clear
There are many
distinction.
ways of going about it but part of the reason why I think you find there's so much attention given to this is simply because there are certain, Eric has mentioned, there are glaring things which make you ask, what on earth was this person thinking? Now, the Ministry of Impunity clearly had taken over the functions of that particular county completely. Instead of just infecting it or infecting certain sections of it, it's complete. How can you do such a thing? How do you take the plum procurement projects within your county and give it to family members? How? How do you prepay people for things they haven't done? I mean, we know the proximity of Kiambu County to Nairobi, and we know that it is in terms of, how it seems developed. But there's a lot that needs to be done. Kiambu County also has poor people. There are people who
has a
need to
lot
be
of
assistance.
projects that need to be sorted
Yes,
out.
surely. How then do you divert all the resources in one particular direction and you think you're going to get away with it?
Your own direction.
Yes.
Take it in the direction of the people.
Right.
That's fine.
But it comes in your
But
direction.
surely.
The smart people take it in the direction of the people.
Yeah.
And while it's in that direction, they have this
They
small
become
little,
the people.
Yes, there are these small little pipes that they attach to the main pipe.
Yeah.
So some of it is diverted. But this entire pipeline was leading towards him and the family.
So we're saying that he was quite dumb in his operations.
Clown. 7:30.
Go
Good
to the
morning.
headlines of the nation.
This is a situation. We're discussing the impeachment of Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waitito and what the people of Kiambu County now deserve. Do they deserve a new governor, or do they deserve a prolonged, long court case? Good morning. Let's take a look at the roads.
Spice FM. Nyeri. Traffic.
All right, so the alternative that we had getting off Mombasa Road was the Southern Bypass, but unfortunately you then now come and connect with Langata Road, where there's overlapping that's making an already bad situation much worse. So using the Southern Bypass is probably not an alternative right now if you're trying to get anywhere much faster. You might want to just exercise some patience and stay on Mombasa Road. We have people getting up earlier this week by 4:30 at least to be off of Mombasa Road today. Looking at Thika Road today, also trying to get into the CBD, not so easy, but it's flowing a little bit better than it was in the earlier part of the week. So patience is what needs to be exercised on the roads this morning. Also remember that it is wet in a lot of parts in a lot of parts of the city, in many parts of the city. So you need to be careful, and places where you need to engage your fog lights, please do so that you can see where you're going. Reach us on Spice FM KE if you see something we need to spread the word about, or 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We are discussing the impeachment of Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waitito right here on in the Situation Room. With me, Eric Latif, we have CT Muga and Nduoko. Basically, we're looking at how did the senators vote yesterday and what is it that informed their voting. There are those that we are saying, there are those that clearly must have thought this is the right vote to cast, and there are those that must have looked at it, from just a point of political expediency. Those who voted against, there were 3 votes, of course, because of the 3 counts, but most of them that were the results were coming in were about the same number of people for against and the same number of people for. 27 to 11 in one count. Gross violation of the Constitution. 27 people voted for. 12 senators voted against. Crimes under national law. 28 voted for. 11 voted against. Abuse of office and gross misconduct. 28 voted for and 11 voted against. So here there's something that is emerging. There's one senator who did not think there was a gross violation of the Constitution. So voted against. Mm-hmm. But that same senator, when it came to these other 2 counts, crimes under national law and abuse of office or gross misconduct, they voted for impeachment. Because there's a 27-12 for the first, and then 28-11, 28-11 for the others. One senator thought through, the second vote and thought, no. I think I should vote this man to go home. Then look at the numbers. 28 plus 11 is 39. 47 minus 39.
8.
So there are some 8 counties that did not participate in yesterday's vote. Some 8 senators that were not.
Do we want to assume that they chose to abstain, or they were not present?
There was 0 abstention.
Okay, so they were not present.
Not present.
Okay.
8 senators were not present. 8 counties were not represented in that vote yesterday.
So we're talking about 39.
Yes.
Good number.
I would
But
say
who were these 8 and where were they?
In the fullness of time, we will get to know.
Who are these 8 and who? What? So we have how they voted, the fors and the against, right? So look at the counties that as I mentioned them, and then tell me which one we are missing out. For impeachment, we had Kirinyaga, Isiolo, Makueni, Wajir, Garissa, Kwale, Kiambu, Kilifi, Kakamega, Siaya, Embu, Narok, Nairobi, Vihiga, Kisii, Kisumu, Nyeri, Nyamira, Baringo, Machakos, Taita Taveta, Homa Bay, Mombasa, Uasin Gishu, Busia, Kitui, West Pokot, those ones, right? Then against, we had Nandi, Kericho, Marsabit, Nakuru, Lamu, Meru, Elgeyo Marakwet, Bomet, Laikipia, Bungoma.
Okay.
Which county is missing there?
Have you mentioned Kakamega?
Kakamega, yes. Cleopas Malala voted for impeachment.
Kwale?
Yes, I was also thinking of Kwale because I'm not sure.
You
I
mentioned Kwale.
Have I?
Yes, you did. You mentioned 4.
Yes, Kwale. Boy Sajuma was in the house. Actually, he
Mm.
contributed. He also voted for. So, in the fullness of time, we're going to find out who these 8 senators were that were not.
What about our northeastern province? How are they represented?
Most of them were there, and they voted for impeachment. I'll tell you. So we start with the Wajir impeachment, Garissa impeachment, Isiolo impeachment. That assuming that's also part of northeastern, although it's in eastern, and then the other one that's missing is what? Mandera. Yep, Mandera.
Okay.
You know, I don't even think this is an issue. And I'll tell you why I don't think it's an issue. If you are talking about, say, 30 versus 19, you'd say, okay.
It's a big number.
Yeah, you're big, but not that big. But what we have here is a clear alignment. And it means the negotiations had taken place and people had understood and had agreed. Now, when people hold out in politics, they're hoping that there'll be a better deal. Usually, but that waiting often, well, it can work out for you, but sometimes as you're looking the other side, you'll find the train has actually left. And you actually can't run and catch up with it. And there isn't another train coming soon. So then you have an option to either walk the distance or forget about the journey completely. But these are politicians. I'm sure they'll give reasons as to why they didn't vote.
Why they were not present, yeah.
Yes.
For whatever reason.
For all you know, somebody was unwell. For all you know, somebody was out of the country.
Yep.
For all you know, we don't know really.
We don't know exactly
So let's
what
wait and
happened.
see. Yes.
Political alignments clearly here is showing that, Handshake has more people than Tanga Tanga.
Handshake have more influence and more power.
Yeah. More influence and more power.
It is very difficult in this country to convince a politician that you are going to go against a sitting president and think you're actually going to win. Not where there's an out-and-out vote on an issue like this and where it is clear what is at stake. What is at stake here wasn't Waititu being taken out.
No.
Political futures.
Precisely.
Of course.
Waititu just found himself in the unfortunate position.
Why can't people just have spines, and just say, I stand by
Or
this?
just say this, you did
I
this
stand by
thing
this.
was wrong.
Eric, they do have spines. It's just that the spines are flexible.
They can bend.
But they have spines.
I think the adjective that you needed to put in there was the one that, it's strong.
Inflexible.
Withstanding.
It is strong, flexible.
In
Should
one
we
way or
say
another.
inflexible? Let's open up the phone lines and see what you think about this. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. The people of Kiambu County have not had a substantive governor. Well, they've had a governor, but the governor has not been in office for long. Now, the county assembly and the Senate have come to an agreement, yes, that this governor does not deserve to be in office. So your deputy governor, the people of Kiambu, is the one who should be sworn into office as soon as possible. However, it's also likely that the governor could go to court and challenge this entire process. And of course, when somebody goes to court and says, look, I think that my rights here have been breached, the first thing that the courts will say is, stop everything, let me hear this person. Now, in this particular case, what I'm saying this morning is, whereas the courts should do what they're supposed to do, they should also be aware of the suffering of the general public. In public interest and for public good, the court should say that the deputy governor should be sworn in pending and continue serving, as we hear the case of Governor Waititu.
Our Chief Justice himself.
He can continue earning his salary if that's what he wants, but don't work.
Our Chief Justice is on record as having said that, look, when one of the statements he's been making, he seems to have made many in the recent past, that, look, we also live in Kenya and we know what's happening. It's not that we don't know.
Yeah.
They do know. And it's not that they don't know. And with them, I hope it isn't a matter of an example. It would be good if indeed Waititu is guilty and he does go to court, then they should uphold a guilty verdict.
Yeah.
If indeed Waititu isn't guilty and the court find him not guilty, they should declare him not guilty.
Not guilty.
Okay, so welcome. I see that you have now
The court should do that, right?
You've wiped your feet on the carpet, or at least the doorstep of this utopia. Come in.
Actually,
welcome.
I would have turned more towards
Should he remove shoes or should he just
No,
walk?
it's okay. Just
Just
come in
come
the
in
way
with
you
your
are.
No.
We take you as the way we take you as you are.
No. I prefer Chino Achebe's approach to this whole matter. I am taking the position of a child who has washed his hands and can now eat with the elders.
So, if in the event that people actually voted, or rather, put forth there, because clearly it was their thinking that they put forth to this vote, whether the thinking was towards political alignment, but in this case, it seems that that's where it was. It would be great. And they say, get just like you're saying, if you get to the court and you say yes, should he? Because this is just at the Senate level. We're not even talking about because I do believe that there are charges that have been leveled against him.
A separate court case, criminal case,
completely. We're not even talking about that. We're just talking about the fact whether he was going to continue administering his duties, serving as governor, right? That is a whole other kettle of fish. But then to say now that in this place at this point, serving as governor for this county, we've seen that you have done 1, 2, 3, and you've not upheld the honor of this office. For that reason, thank you very much, but sit down, step aside.
Yeah, but let's separate those two. If the governor goes to court, it will not be because of whether he's guilty or not of what he has done. It will be going to court because of the process. He'll
It's
be
the
going
process.
to challenge how he was
Interestingly
impeached.
enough, he's not going to say, I'm not guilty or I did not do this. That's not the point.
That's a different court case.
He's going to say, in this case, I did not or I was not granted the opportunity to present my case.
Yep.
And I think that is what he's going to stick on, because that is what he had said previously. And it was kind of glossed over because the process just continued without that having been addressed. And I think now this grants him, because he's not, people might call him a clown, but he's not stupid. He's going to hold on to that because he understands that also the courts want to uphold process, and I can see the smile forming on your face, CT, already after that. But at this point, I think he's going to hold on to that and say, look, you didn't allow me to present my case, and perhaps there's something that I have to offer that is pertinent or that would have been pertinent towards this decision that you then made later.
And me, I'm okay with all that. All I'm saying is, in the meantime,
as you're doing that, let Dr. Nyoro,
Dr. Nyoro,
yes.
No, Waichito was telling us this man calls himself doctor. He does not have a PhD. So let's just call him Nyoro. Okay. So can Nyoro take over the reins of power?
Interestingly enough, according to the laws that we have seen, the Senate has done this whole process has come onto an expected end.
Yes.
This is what was supposed to happen. In this case now, we don't know if it's tomorrow or the day after. Maybe it would have been last evening if things didn't end as late as they did. But really now, as far as what they have finished, James Nyoro should actually be instituted as governor. In the next 2 months, he then will name his deputy. In terms of that process, that actually needs to take place. And I do agree with you. Let's move forward. Let's move on. We can't have things continue tied up in whether if he wants to go ahead, sure. Let that continue. But this process also on this set also needs to continue. We seem to have been in limbo for so long over so many things. If you look at what's happening in Nairobi as well, can you name a deputy while you're out? Can you not name a deputy? Is it going to be upheld? Is it valid? Is it not valid? Talk. Bureaucracy, procedure, this, that, and the other thing. And then again, left in limbo. Things are not happening. Things are not moving.
For greater public good.
Way.
Who suffers in this whole process of back and forth?
The citizens will suffer at the end of the day.
The taxpayers,
what are people
because they're
about?
paying tax today.
They're paying tax every day.
There'll be Momboga going to that new swanky Gatondo South market.
Expecting services.
And she will be paying.
And those are not happening. We can't have money being dispersed at the county level because there's nobody to sign for it.
Yep.
There's no governor, there's no deputy. I mean, even whoever is in acting capacity, CECs, are not able to sign or make decisions pertinent to the running of a county. Let's get it moving. We can't, I do agree. If you want to go to court, go to court. But in the meantime, let these things be done.
Can this man just take over the office?
Absolutely.
Can he do the things that need to be done?
Let him do it.
And so if he's found not guilty, then what do? We reverse the process? Because we will have a governor in place. So
yes.
What happens?
We reverse the process. Whatever, I don't know. Let's just deal with it politically. So if he's found not guilty, all right, maybe what we can say here is
no. If
the deputy governor in this particular case does not appoint a deputy, all right? So when Dr. Nyoro takes over office, let him not appoint a deputy. Let him just run the county by himself with the executive. If the case is concluded and Babayao is found to be not guilty, or the process of impeaching him is found to have been fraudulent and flawed, then he's reinstated as governor and Nyoro comes back as deputy.
But you remember in this particular case, these are two different cases that we're dealing with, right?
We're still on the one.
No, but
On process.
if we're talking about being found not guilty, would not be his bone of contention.
not that one.
That
You're
would
talking
not be the
about
bone of contention if
was-
he took it
was-
to court
was it
now.
procedural
It is
or
procedural.
not?
Now, if the court decides, if he does take it to court and the court decides that yes, we see a flaw here or there, they might decide to overturn the process. At that point, then they will tell us how they will deal with that, right? We're still remembering that he still has a criminal case somewhere in the gallery
Because of that,
taking place. Okay?
even if that process is declared, and he'll still
he
not,
still has that one to deal with.
and he'll not be allowed to get to have access to office.
Exactly. Still, because of that, again, pursuant to the Ngugi ruling, he still cannot access office. So either way, the man is in a conundrum here, because where there are two different things now that he would have to deal with.
You know, the more this matter is discussed and even taken to court, the more will come out. Even as he presents his case, as he argues that he has a case to present that would probably help exonerate him, please understand there'll be rebuttals. So just when you think one can of worms has been shut, you open one in your defense, you will open many others. Because the issues that have been in the public domain cannot, and I don't think are not the only issues that exist in the county of Kiambu. No. And the unfortunate thing is that the governors we have do not have a very good reputation. Now, this is not, I'm not talking about those who seem to have presented themselves well and have managed. No. But they are represented by individual governors or brother or sister governors who have made it their mandate to manage the funds of their county as badly as they possibly can. Yes. So, with such a representation, and with Nyoro having started as being in the group that are the aforementioned group, his prospects don't look very good even if he gets to court.
No, they don't. No, they don't. They don't look very good in terms of what you would be able to argue. And this is the unless he sticks to process, there's very little that he would be able to argue with this. And I think also for the proceedings and the hearings as which we saw them also were sticklers for the process. But at this point, the opportunity to remove him trumped any kind of procedural directive in any way, shape or form. They wanted to get him out, and that was clear from the numbers that we saw.
Remember also, one of the things that has characterized our politicians is they never admit to any wrong, they never apologize,
No.
and they have a response to everything, and they are not averse to lying outrightly.
True.
So now, if that is how we've characterized you, because that's how you presented yourself to us, and one of, well, that particular species is now in this particular situation that we find Governor Waititu in, the likelihood of even the public sentiments being in your favor are slim.
Indeed. Let's take a look at, let's take a short break and then open up the phone lines. 0719 012 600. It's 13 minutes to 8.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Should the Deputy Governor of Kiambu, James Nyoro, be sworn into office immediately, regardless of whether Governor Ferdinand Waititu goes to court to challenge the impeachment process? That's the question we're asking this morning, 0719 012 600. The argument, of course, for this is that the people of Kiambu deserve a service because they elected governor and deputy governor. And because they have already done this, they deserve to have representation in the executive of their county. Now, we've had a situation where they've been in limbo for a long time. The deputy governor has been acting, but he does not have full powers to do a lot of the things that he ought to be doing. The governor is still in office, has also been in office, and could not access office because of criminal case pending in court. So this is one of those situations where we basically
what
need
I found interesting
solution.
though is this: you have a case of 6 senators who didn't vote, and they're all nominated. Beth Mugo.
Those ones don't vote.
Yes, precisely. They don't vote in such a case.
Yeah.
But then we have others who didn't vote.
Who have
And-
a vote.
And have a vote. Where I'm going with this, I know we touched on it and said that these individuals, well, there could be reasons why they didn't vote.
Yep.
There always are reasons. But again, let's focus on the future. I have moved from utopia. I have terminated my lease. Yes.
Back to reality?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am looking for other accommodation. And what comes to my mind is this. We've even said that it's foreboding. You are looking at a sign of the future to come. This is what has happened. If Mr. Nyoro was to be the governor, it's in keeping with what is already in the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to give Waititu more powers or allow him to be governor, would we be keeping the strict letter of the law of the of the Constitution as it's currently constituted, or will we require an amendment?
We may require some clarity on law.
That is why his going to court may be useful, because if he then goes to court, then among other things,
the courts will set
whatever else we've said, yes, notwithstanding, some of these things may be clarified. Because remember, part of the reason why one Nyoro was not able to take over was again because of the constitutional constraint. That the governor was still the governor, though he couldn't access his office.
Yep.
And the argument, remember the argument that the DPP had, that when you say you can't access his office, it means you no longer have powers of the office.
the functions.
Yes.
Right.
Now, that was a debate, and that debate hasn't been concluded. But this one here is distinct and it is clear. If that is a Senate ruling, then it is clear what next follows. If it goes to court, it gets murky again. So
Brings us back.
Yes, much
Full
as
circle.
yes. So what do we have? If Nyoro becomes the governor of Kiambu, and according to the constitution as we understand it, he should be.
Yes.
Okay? Now, if Waititu goes to court, then he'll be going to court as the immediate former governor of Kiambu, not as the governor of Kiambu. Should he win his case, now, will that resolution of the court trump the resolution of the Senate? And if it does, what does it mean? Do we go into another election?
Good questions. Good questions that need to emerge. And in fact, they're emerging already, and we'll need to get clarity on this, on what needs to happen, how. So if I go to court and I'm saying I challenge, because every time somebody goes to court, the court first thing grants you your immediate wish. What is your number one wish? And the certificate of urgency.
Stop.
They are going to bring somebody else into my house. Please tell them not to bring anybody else into my house.
Okay, fine.
It's fine.
No
Let
problem.
nobody else enter that house. Fine. So what are you saying? And then we shall hear you for the next 2.5 years. So he continues earning the full salary of a governor, because today, as it stands, this man should not earn a salary in February.
Exactly, because he's done being
He's
governor.
done being governor.
And this is the thing. The decision that
Immediately we
was
should
taken.
withdraw his security.
The decision that was taken last evening was an end all to this, in terms of the questions as was he going to be here or not. At the points in which then it was presented by the county assembly, that was when it was up in questions okay, so what happens next? This was the what happens next. And of course, the vote that they made then, because we're not talking about right now, is he governor or not? As of yesterday, he ceases to be governor of Nairobi, of Kiambu. He
Yes.
ceases to be governor. So in the event that takes place, then what happens? And like I said before, I think there needs to be a seamless transition. Let's just go forward. Anybody who wants to appeal or do whatever they need to do, they're allowed to go ahead and do that. But things need
in
to
the
carry.
in public interest, because this is a very clear thing. In fact, courts always do this. In the interest of the public, because these are the people, 1 million people went to vote. And those 1 million people deserve a governor. Those 1 million people deserve services from their county government. What are we going to do? The courts, this is where the courts should be very clear and say, all right, you come, but I am not going to grant any wish seeking to block the ongoing process. Come and continue with your case. Let that happen. So if you come and win your case, and you say that I was unprocedurally removed from office, assuming that that's how Governor Waititu is going to be challenging in court, then let's deal with that later.
There's
At that point.
There's something that I read even as I was looking through these the article relating to these votes. Those who voted apparently against the motion, there's an indication of one particular nominated senator who's actually nominated voting. a lady by the name of Marione.
Voted for
Against.
or against.
No,
So here's
it's
what
not,
happens.
It's not voted against, just voted. And she's nominated. Am I misreading it, or is there something I don't understand about this?
Probably because what happens is when you have nominated senators, they come together as a delegation. So say Nairobi has an elected senator called Johnson Sakaja. There are some other nominated senators in Nairobi who belong to a delegation of Nairobi. So if a political party said, where does this person come from? Comes from Nairobi. I think Senator Omanga, Millicent Omanga, is among those who belong to the Nairobi delegation. There's also another one. So all of you come together as the delegation of Nairobi and you agree, how are we going to vote? Are we voting this way or the other? And then that is a delegation vote, which is cast by the elected senator. Or maybe in the absence of the elected senator, but all of you have come to an agreement as our delegation of Nairobi votes this way, so the nominated senator can cast the vote.
Well, that would be a bit tricky, because if we then look at the list of people who didn't vote, we have senators in Nairobi. I'm giving an example who didn't vote.
Who? Like who?
Well, there is a lady by the name of very well known lady, Beth Mugo.
Beth Mugo is a senator, yes, but remember, the delegation is Nairobi. Johnson Sakaja has cast the vote for Nairobi. That's why she cannot vote, because she's represented by the Johnson Sakaja vote. There can only be 47 votes. So any senator who is from Nairobi, like
If you come from a
correctly
county
said,
It's covered
where
by
the Senate,
the
the
elected-
substantive senator has voted,
yeah,
you
that's
cannot
it.
vote.
You cannot
Yes.
vote.
Your vote is represented by the substantive senator.
Excellent.
it's a new thing that everybody keeps learning, everybody keeps understanding. Okay, so this is the processes, these are the procedures, this is how they go and argue in court, this is what they say. Now, if we look at the arguments that are being put forth and against by the governor and his team, for example, they were saying, look, you are saying that the Governor Babayao influenced the contracts to be awarded to Mama Yao and Yao. And he's saying, that's not Mama Yao and that's not Yao. That's not my wife.
Did he deny his wife?
Yes, that's not my wife.
Right, because of the name or because of...
He just said that is not my wife. And that's why
Right.
the debate came in and people started saying, look, how can you just deny your wife? We know, in fact, that the people who had brought in the matter, the county assembly, the MCA who brought this, the lawyer said, look, we have people who attended a traditional wedding ceremony for this couple. They're there. They are known. All right? So there's no way you can say that this is not your wife. You cannot say that.
All these other elements, just like the one that you've brought up now. are
Well,
the
Tito's
ones-
lawyers were asking, have you seen a wedding certificate?
Can you imagine? There's nothing a lawyer will not tell you when they're trying to defend your
How
case,
do
my
you
friend.
know this is my wife? Have you seen a wedding certificate? Of course, Johnson Sakaja issued quite a nice rebuttal. Said, we know the first lady of the country is Margaret Kenyatta. Have we seen a wedding certificate? But we know.
We
that
do.
She is the first lady of the country. She is the president's wife.
In fact, of the political class, whose wedding certificate have we seen?
Have we seen?
And we don't. Do we need to see
We
any?
don't care.
When they
It
tell us this
doesn't
is your first
matter.
lady, this is it. This
Fine.
is your first lady. In
Yes.
Machakos, we have a first lady. In Nairobi, we have a first
This
lady.
is a personal
In
matter
Nyeri,
between
we have a
you and
first
that
lady.
person. If you tell us that's the one, we say that's
Sawa.
the one. Yes. If you change and say there's been a replacement, we say
No
we
problem.
understood.
Carry
Yes.
on. Right, but you see now all of these things that come up, these little bits and bobs of information that are seemingly a bit annoying now to the whole process, are the ones that should actually then point to the fact that perhaps this gentleman is not the one who should be sitting in this seat. Because if you have to raise such issues later, to then try and cover your tracks, because that's when it shows that you're trying to do, cover your tracks, and then of course points to the fact
Cover
that
it
you
badly.
very, very badly, trying to use a handkerchief to cover an entire body. And then you're asking yourself, well, really? It didn't cover it well? No, it really didn't. And then, of course, pointing to the fact that actually, yes, maybe it is true that you did what you did. All the more reason why you should not be in this position.
This is not my body.
Right.
What you're looking at. It isn't.
Actually, it looks like it, but it isn't.
It isn't my
But
body.
this face isn't mine.
I am a different person altogether.
If you see now, when you have such a precedent, when another governor comes in and they judge by the same yardstick, they'll claim the same. Then we'll say, but look, we've had someone in
Yes.
university telling us all sorts of funny things. What makes you different?
Yeah. How special do you think you are?
Exactly.
This conversation continues on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE Twitter. Also, you can post your comments on Instagram, Spice FM KE, and YouTube, Spice FM KE. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's coming up to 8 o'clock. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then we start another new conversation. Good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM.
So I think the
Kisumu.
delegation needs to be sent out to find out exactly what's happening right here on Mombasa Road. We've had people who've been out on the road from 5:30 this morning and have just now passed the airport road junction. Really, we're looking at 2.5 odd hours and it is not moving. We have police who are trying to organize traffic, direct traffic, but that doesn't seem to be working. And so a lot of people are very late today. If you don't need to be on Mombasa Road, please don't, at least not now. Thika Road is traffic all the way from Allsops, moving far back as Garden City today, but then in this case it actually is moving as you're trying to get into the city centre. Langata Road, of course, we have the influx from the southern bypass, and that affects what we see going down towards Timor, affecting Bagathi Way, and also what would be the road leading towards Nyayo Stadium roundabout. So yes, quite a lot of traffic in different parts of the city today, and it's going to mean that a lot of people have to exercise a lot of patience. And we also have the Embakasi SGR that has gotten stuck, so now we need more transport on that road because people can't get where they're going. It's a lovely morning, innit? 0719-012-600 or Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 2.5 minutes to after 8 o'clock. Good morning, and thank you very much for tuning in. 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, and 97.7 in Malindi in the Situation Room this morning. My name is Eric Latif. We have C.T. Muga and Ndu Oko.
Right, we're looking at the economy this morning, and we've been, of course, talks of this have been happening. Over the last few months, we've seen certain austerity measures having been taken by government because we've heard coming out of the mouth of the president very recently also, even when talking about the judiciary, that we don't know where this money is going to come from. We don't have money. The state of the economy is not good at all. And this is definitely has affected the way in which the government itself is able to do business. We've seen many numbers. We've seen many forecasts. We've heard different things about the direction in which we are going. And it's saying 9 out of 10. What are the numbers that we saw today? 9 out of 10 in Kenya are actually poor, not being able to fend for themselves when it comes to putting money in the pocket. Yesterday, we heard from the central bank governor, Patrick Njoroge, and he says that now what has been happening is that the government has been working very closely with banks to make sure that we are staying within the nation's economic development, and we're able to actually raise the profile of the country's economic development. And he says that we are optimistic. Regardless of what the forecast is, we are carrying umbrellas up, literally, and we're making sure that we have the gumboots on. We're making sure that we need to do what we need to do to make sure that we remain afloat, and at some point even actually start to swim again. In 2018, 2018, the forecast was not good. In 2019, a little bit worse. 2020, we have the blinders on in terms of now what are we going to be able to see and how are we going to be able to get ourselves back from what is actually the case in Kenya. The private sector grew by a certain percent between January and December last year, but then by the end of the year, things were not looking good in any way, shape, or form. The World Bank has lent its mouth to this and has said, look, things are not looking good in any way, shape, or form. According to what we see, darker skies are being forecast for the struggling Kenyan economy, and they've basically said if Kenya doesn't get its act together, things are going to fall apart. And what they see is that the foundation is already crumbling. Things need to be done. There needs to be a redirection of how things are going to happen if Kenya is going to remain afloat. And of course, this was after a report that was given, by the World Bank in terms of what then needs to happen. I'm saying that it's very clear what the CBK governor has said vis-a-vis what the World Bank has said. It's very clear that Kenya needs to be quite insular about how these changes are going to take place. There are decisions that need to be made from within about what needs to happen. There is no world funding body that's going to tell you that things are looking good, because that definitely means that you're not going to borrow from them. And I think we need to go into this with eyes open and say, if we are going to raise the economic profile, if we're going to raise the development profile of this country, there are things that need to be done in country and not necessarily taking the forecast of doom and gloom that comes from outside.
How do you balance that? What the external factors are telling you, what the external organizations like the World Bank, the Bretton Woods institutions, the European Union and such, with the government and burying its hand in the sand?
Look at what one of the things that they've said is one problem why Kenya has not been able to raise its GDP or at least curb things like inflation is that Kenya has been focusing too much on agriculture. That's what the report says.
That's what the World Bank is telling us.
That's what the World Bank has said.
And we should stop.
That Kenya has focused too much on agriculture. You who are here,
who are Kenyan,
here living in this country and seeing what is happening, would you say that the government really is focusing on agriculture as a form of how to get more money into the system? We've talked about how the agriculture ministry was able to bungle things 100%. We've talked about scandal after scandal that has come right out of the agriculture sector in this country. We've looked at agriculture as the big four, whereby as one part of the big four, whereby really in terms of strides, big strides have not been made in the agriculture sector.
Yeah, but the focus still is on agriculture. It's not a lie, it's the truth.
Yes, but we're saying that they have said that the focus has been on agriculture. We need to take it away from agriculture and focus on other things if we are going to raise the profile of this country. By the time
manufacturing, for instance, or tourism.
Tourism has been a peg forever, has it not? Tourism has been a peg forever for this country, has it not?
We've been focusing on those two things, tourism and agriculture. And it's true what the World Bank is saying. Look, if we look at our foreign exchange earners, what are the big foreign exchange earners? So we've got tourism, we've got floriculture, and that's agriculture. We've got tea, we've got coffee. Those are agriculture. And now horticulture as well comes in. We focus a lot on agriculture as what is going to give us foreign exchange, as what is going to uplift millions of people from poverty. We just focus on it with talk.
But what did the World Bank mean that we were focused on agriculture?
As opposed to what, right?
Basically what they're saying, they've not given, this is the thing, they've reported, they've not given, it's a statement.
Based on what exactly?
They have not given suggestions then to say, okay, we've said that this is what you've done. They've not said now, going forward, this is what you should do.
Actually, even that isn't taking it a bit far. I'm simply asking when they say we are overrepresented in the agricultural sector. What exactly does that mean?
We're an agriculture economy.
Is
that a complaint? Is that a negative thing or is that a positive thing?
Well, it's a negative thing from where they're coming, because they say if you continue in this manner, there will be darker skies for the Kenyan economy. And they've been very clear about this. I mean, they're not, they're saying that this is where you've been focusing. You talk about floriculture, you've been focusing on that.
This is an organization that lends people money.
There you go.
If we were actually successful in agriculture, it means then we wouldn't need them to lend us money for agriculture. So what do they want to lend us money for? The next level, that is industrialization?
Probably.
Yes. Well, all that is good and well. They're a business and they're promoting their business. We understand that. But when you consider the history that the World Bank or failed projects on this continent, let's not talk about the world, just on this continent. And a lot of it, if you ask and if you look at the reasons given for those failures, it was not just the planning phase. Planning itself was faulty. And then the process of implementation was also faulty. In Kenya, they are startling, clear, obvious. The most, well, there are others, but my favorite one is the Lake Turkana fishing project.
Yes.
What happened there?
Well,
It was a World Bank funded project,
yes, it was a very good idea.
but not them who are implementing it.
Usually they oversee the implementation, mean they tell you to do what they've told you. So they might as well implement it.
So if you guys are not doing what they've told you to do,
Chances,
blame them.
you know, they don't give you that money at once. It's
No,
given
no,
in
no,
bits. They'll
Yep.
probably stop giving it to you. And there are projects that have failed because they were abandoned. There are projects that have failed because the funding was cut short. This isn't one of them. This one was a good project in that they wanted the fish processed. But one of the things that I think they didn't take into account is the cycle of drought that people who lived in that area understood perfectly well. And they knew that over such a period of time, we tend to have this sort of problems. So the likelihood of fishermen, and the lake will even recede as a result of this. So this delightful enterprise that you're talking about would perhaps be best placed when this season is over, so you know you have another 7 years or so before it comes again.
yeah.
That little detail was not taken into account. So it began, but around the same time this particular natural phenomenon took place. So the problem, the project tanked.
Who proposed this project? I'm sure it didn't start from the World Bank. It must have started from people within the Kenyan government who
They did.
proposed it.
They did.
And if those people then failed to take into consideration all these things,
They didn't fail.
No.
They didn't
if
fail.
they took into consideration these things, but they did not factor in.
No, they factored it in.
So what's the problem?
The problem is the World Bank will want to implement it in the way they think they should. This is the key. This is the complaint that keeps arising. That they feel they've understood what you've told them, but they feel this is what you need
This
to
is
do.
how you
And
should
since
do
they're
it.
the
Look.
owners of the money, which is now in many cases the overriding factor, they are the ones who are giving you the money to do this. And one thing that we have to look at is a lot of these projects, yes, they will be the implementers, they will be the drivers, they will give their suggestions, leaning heavily in one position. They will give their suggestions then on how these things are supposed to be rolled out. It happens.
Look.
World Bank funded project is not that they just give their money and then
No,
they go away.
no, they don't.
No.
They never go away.
They are participatory to the very end.
Of
Look,
course.
if you look at, say, the project, the Toshka New Valley project in Egypt, huge project. Why did it fail? Again, they didn't involve the stakeholders in just this, what we call public participation. What that means, translated, is that they insisted on doing this thing the way they felt they should do it. Of course, the project got abandoned. It wasn't going to work. But that list is long. It isn't a short list. In Chad, they had a similar project. They've had projects all over this continent. There are some that have worked, but this one was not direct World Bank. Like, for instance, the Microsoft project that was in South Africa. That one is argued was an overwhelming success.
Right.
But again, you see, this is enterprise, not World Bank. Eric, what I'm saying is this. Whenever the World Bank have projects, and why they have such a delightful history of failing, except when they are planning and give you money for roads, because roads are straightforward. Something will go wrong because they will insist on doing things in the manner they think they know. I'm going to talk about the bushfires in Australia. For the longest time, the native people of Australia have used what they call thematic and systematic burning to rejuvenate the
land.
ecosystem.
For farming.
Yes,
Yes.
and they've even had systems by which they control fires when fires get out of hand.
Yeah.
There are those who argue that these methods have been incorporated into what they are now considered firefighting. But there are others who say if they had, they wouldn't have spread as much as they have. Why? Because they say modern science indicates that this is how it should be done. Modern science is being slapped in the face every day with those fires. They say they have modern techniques of doing these things. They even bring in experts from outside the country. Recently, 3 Americans died in the attempt to help put out these fires. Again, they are being slapped in the face by these fires. And there are those who argue that no one has bothered to ask the locals, we found you here and you had fires. How did you guys go about this thing?
The locals didn't have arsonists amongst them. This
No.
particular case, for example, you find very many fires that have been reported to have been started by arsonists.
Eric,
Either deliberately or not.
Those regions have had fires long before we knew of this career called arsonism, okay? And it's because they have such serious dry seasons that fires would ignite simply because there was sufficient fuel for it.
Right, and also you have to look at the region that we're talking about is actually quite predominantly desert region.
Yes,
Australia is actually
dry.
in a desert.
Yes, predominantly. So the issue, you don't even need arsenic. Arsonists may just exacerbate.
fire.
They would
just
add fuel to the
encourage,
fire in
but
this case.
the fire was going to be there anyway.
It was going to be there. That's what I'm
point-
saying. The point I was trying to counter with is, so traditionally they knew how to start a fire, control a fire, and put out a fire, and they knew the seasons and they knew when and how, right?
Yes.
Right now, it's still applying the same and adding science to it, but you've not factored in that there are people who are just crooks, warped in their head. So somebody is just going to start a fire just for the kick of it.
Of the vast majority of fires we have in
And you're
Australia,
trying to use science to
what
put it out.
percentage would we say have been caused by arsonists? Remember, this is a perennial thing from time immemorial.
It'll happen next year.
Yes. It didn't
So you
start
know, right.
when Thomas Cook landed there or wherever it is he and his buddies landed. They've had fires in Australia for the longest possible time. And they've managed it. I am giving the example that in the absence of consulting the people who live in the place you want to implement the project, chances of success of that particular project are next to zero. And if you have experts coming in to, for instance, give you advice on how an economic plan should be implemented, and the locals are not fully involved, that thing is not going to work. One of the first times when the World Bank predicted that this country was actually going to go belly up was in the 90s. That's when I first came across such pronouncements. It was widespread. And they said that given what they were working on, it was clear. It's a good thing they said what they were working on. At that point in time, they hadn't taken into consideration what they called the hidden economy, what we call the informal sector
Right.
or the Juakali sector. And somehow they hadn't understood that this was the engine.
That was going to drive economies, and I think that is clear.
It was already doing so.
Right. And it's this is what I'm saying today, that it is obvious that the way in which it, and the word that a lot has been used is that the patronizing manner in which it comes through is something that cannot continue. Here we have countries, we talk about sovereignty all the time, but in this case, of course, the World Bank being the World Bank and the IMF, of course, being the global godfathers of money, especially when it comes to then developing countries. It doesn't mean that just because they have the money, it doesn't mean that we cannot apply some thought. And I don't think that it is because of over-reliance on certain sectors why an economy would suffer. There are other factors that are mitigating when it comes to this. And of course, we've talked about it all the time. Here in Kenya, in the different parts of Africa, we talk about corruption and other things that then affect a country's development on the whole. However, I think that it's while it is important to take in some of this information that they're able to give us because they have global reports and such, it doesn't mean that on every turn, everything they say then should be taken as gospel truth. When, for example, we have other things that we know are able definitely to get this country moving.
Unless you're arguing that they have because they have among the best pool of economists and experts in these areas. That's why you find governments going to tap into this,
Right,
into
but
the expertise that
they've
they
met
have.
certain-
Unless you're
they've
saying
made-
that these people are just too academic and not practical, then
No,
let's have
I'm just saying that
argument.
there's certain things that they're not taking into consideration, which we also need to look at as to why things may be going wrong.
Why would they not
Absolutely.
take that into consideration? That's their training. They know this.
They
is what
told us
should
in the
do.
90s that we were going to fall apart into many pieces. They said this was going to happen without taking other things into consideration.
You listened to them, you did something. That's why you didn't. 18 minutes past 8 o'clock. Let's take a look at what's happening in the weather and then continue the conversation.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Spice up your life. The weather with Spice FM.
Warming up to about 17 degrees in Nairobi with showers intermittently around the city today. That's where we have it. Looking at Nakuru, which is currently right now still experiencing quite a number of showers and is downcast through major parts of the town, 16 degrees. In Mombasa today, where it was overcast earlier, standing strong at 27 degrees and likely to be the same throughout the day. In Nyeri, it is overcast and we're experiencing warm weather at 17 degrees. Kisumu, where it was raining earlier, is still the downcast overcast at 19 degrees, and we're going to see Malindi holding at 26 degrees throughout most of the day, partly cloudy conditions. That's what it looks like around the country concerning your weather.
Chilled Spice. mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Well, some update on what's happening in Kiambu this morning. It's coming up to 8:19. High Court Judge John Onyego is today, Thursday, January 30th, scheduled to preside over the swearing-in of the new Kiambu Governor, James Nyoro. The event is to be held in Kiambu in his hour.
Moving on swiftly.
Moving on swiftly. Yeah. Back to World Bank and economic outlook of the countries and the kind of reports that they do. So you're saying that, yes, they do present us with reports. We also have, of course, our own internal ways of producing our own reports. We have fully funded Kenya National Bureau of Statistics that does all these collection of data on a daily basis, on a regular basis. Then they present this, of course, to the government, the Treasury, the Central Bank of Kenya. So when you have the Central Bank of Kenya governor saying, this is what I see the economy, this is how I see the economy performing, he's basically basing this on information that he has access to, that has been collected by a government agency, right?
Right. Government agencies, of course, he's looking at domestic banks. He's looking at what the forecast would be. And of course, we're not talking about direct contravention, but it just looks at totally a different forecast that he has given. And he was basically urging and he was urging and encouraging Kenyans yesterday by saying that the economy will improve this year, not in the next 5 years, this year. Last year's inflation was within the target range, referring to the most recent month-on-month overall inflation in November and December. And we're looking at 5.6% and 5.8% respectively. He said he attributed the slight increase to inflation to temporary effects on increase in food prices and transport costs during the festive period, and that's likely to stave off as we go along. Now, of course, many would argue and say, in this case, maybe he's trying to give hope where there is actually no hope, because you don't want a gentleman who is at this position to tell you that things are actually bad, or to tell you that, look, we're going down the slippery slope, folks. But then, is it possible that there could be such a stark difference then, where he is saying, look, things are actually going to get better. Measures have been put in place according to the reports that we are getting, according to what domestic banks are telling us, we are going to be all right. In the next 12 months, we're going to definitely see an improvement. As opposed to what the World Bank is saying at this point, that look, if you focus and continue doing business the way in which you have been doing it as a country, it doesn't look good, folks. Things are going to fall apart. And so you must ask yourself, who then are we listening to? And where are we getting our information from? At this point, it's not really that you're focusing, according to what I'm seeing from what the World Bank is saying, not necessarily only that you're focusing on agriculture, but the way in which you have been doing business. If you continue doing it in this manner, we forecast darker skies. You're going to go deeper and deeper into it, without it. They don't come out and talk about corruption per se, but they've talked about the fact
But
that...
do our own statistics support what the World Bank is saying?
No.
For example, has there been
No.
a decline in the growth of the agricultural sector? Is there an increase or a decrease
Interestingly enough,
in the
in
growth
the
of the
reports that
agriculture?
have come out of the CBK, this was not mentioned. It was not mentioned.
But over time, is there a decline or
in
increase
terms of the
in
output
growth
or
of
in
the-
terms of the performance of the agricultural
Yes.
sector, absolutely, things have fallen. I mean, we talked about the fact that in the last 5 years, we saw that we had, for example, just one example, highest food prices in Kenya ever in the last 5 years. Okay? That was clear and that was given. Has there been a drop?
Failure in the output of the agricultural sector is usually attributed to natural phenomenon like weather patterns and what have you. In this country, that is not the case. It's contrived. When we had a problem with maize, it was not that maize wasn't growing in the country.
There was a scandal.
It was. We even
Yes.
had an an abundance of the crop. But I want to leave that discussion and take us back to the functions of the World Bank. You see, we are fumbling about it without understanding what their functions actually are. The obvious one that we know of is that they lend people money. But for what purposes? For what purpose? What is the stated purpose? Their purpose is to eliminate poverty. For me, that's a red flag immediately. And to provide assistance to the poor, another red flag, by offering loans, money, policy advice, red flag, and technical assistance, and even redder flag, if there could be one. As such, countries receiving aid are learning new ways of functioning. Now, it's in this offering advice, where problem comes in. Technical advice and in policy advice. Because essentially, they're going to tell you to change the way you do things to the way they do. Now, when we change, the argument we have here is those changes are followed. Then the problem that we thought was going to be solved isn't solved. It actually is exacerbated.
But why do we place this World Bank like it's a competing interest, like it's a government by its...
It is a government.
Listen, it's a huge global institution.
It's a
yes,
government.
yes, it's a huge global institution, but it's not an implementer of any of those things.
Oh,
It
yes.
just talks about.
Eric.
Come on.
That is the
You have
lie.
not- there's nothing you've read
That-
there
that
says
is the
that
lie.
says that it runs a government or that it does.
When
it
someone
does projects.
attaches policy advice and technical assistance to their money,
Yeah,
what do you think?
but that's what
do you
they're
think
doing.
that means?
They're doing that for you in your country. They don't have their own country that they do it with, and then they come and say that you're competing.
But you must understand.
It's not saying that like.
No, must
that-
they
like-
have a country?
Like
They have an interest, and that interest is what is fighting against yours because they are forwarding their interest while saying that their primary goal is to just assist you. And I'm saying it is
And
not
what is
true.
their interest?
We receive interest, yes, but it's to change the world so that it suits their purposes. Remember, these fellows have an arm called the International Finance Code.
What you're not saying,
That-
CT, and what I'm trying to drive you to say is who then is controlling them.
I don't want to say it. I'm saying what I want to say.
Okay, let me
You
say it. It's
what,
very
no,
clear
no, wait.
that
Because-
let Eric say
because
what
I'm
it is he
asking you
wants to
this
say.
question and you're dancing around
I'm
it.
not dancing around it,
Whose interests are they advancing? If
but
they're
their
saying-
own. Have I not
and
said
what
so?
are these interests of theirs? If they're working with countries around the globe, what is this that you're saying that they want to change into one? What is this one universal interest that they have that they want to implement around the country?
It's never... Eric, you've asked that question. Why don't you answer it? Because you seem to have an answer.
I don't have. But
Then
this
let
is
me-
what you're
let me
suggesting,
continue
and
with
I'm
what I
asking
was
you. So
saying
what exactly
so
is it that you're saying?
What I was about to say would
because
actually answer your question.
Let's
They
hear
have
this.
an arm
Let's hear
called
this.
the International Finance Corp.
corporation.
They are the ones who actually lend money to governments directly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they don't have moral qualms as to who they lend money to. Whether you have human rights abuse, whether you have what, if they think you can pay or if they think they can peg it to something that will be of value to them, they will lend you money.
IFC actually lends to also private sector. It invests. It's the investment arm of the World Bank. So they can come in here, for example, and partner with the Standard Group Center. They'll take a stake in Standard Group Center, inject some capital, so they become shareholders. IMF doesn't. It's a bank.
Eric,
It deals with governments.
What you've just described is what lends itself to what I have been trying to say, that you cannot talk about giving policy advice, and yet when you lend money to a government or invest in that government, what you're doing is you're supporting that government,
Right.
irrespective of whatever it is they're doing wrong to their people. So in essence, you are not actually helping the poor in that country. That is what I'm trying to say. What you're doing is furthering your commercial and financial interests. You asked the question before, what is their goal? To increase their financial and whatever social and economic benefit they can derive. Your interest is stated so that it is attractive, but that is not their primary goal. That's what I'm saying.
So they're in this to make money.
Of course.
Of course, and I think there's an
to
element of
peddle
control.
influence.
And
There's
this
an element of
and
control
this is
that we can't
understandable.
ignore.
They must make money so that they have enough money to sustain the projects around the world. Just
Eric,
like any bank, it's a world bank. Any bank
the
makes
reason
money.
this discussion is whether we should believe what the World Bank is telling us about
Yes.
the economy. And I'm saying, given such a background, no. I would rather believe what the Governor of the Central Bank is telling us.
With a local understanding of what really is happening and what they've been able to see over time. And I think it's necessary then to say, look here, this is what we have seen. And if we're actually looking at policy control and if we're looking at support of governments, which if we want to look at the origin of the World Bank in the very beginning as a Bretton Woods institution that came out about, and one of the very first projects that they were involved in was the Marshall Plan, where there was the rebuilding of Western Europe. Okay? This was very clear in terms of what they wanted to do. After that is when they now went global and they said, okay, we've seen that this has been able to work. Let's move forward and then see what we're able to do about it. Then came in the aspect of we wanted to end poverty, we wanted to bring in policy support for governments, etc., etc. However, there's an element of control still that they would want to establish and keep around the world. Now, if you give the doom and gloom forecast all the time, the likelihood of anybody then coming back to you to ask for help in certain sector or different projects then is very high.
Yeah.
And of course, that buffers the element of control that you would eventually have, whichever way you want to look at it. Now, for you to say that this is where you have focused, but then say it is not good to focus there, but then leave a vacuum where then it comes in terms of what you're going to give as an option, you don't give an option, then you might as well stay with that information. There's nothing you have told us that we do not know at the end of the day. But here we are and we're saying, okay, they said you focus too much on agriculture. Have they seen and been here on the ground locally to understand
What does the
really
report say?
what
And when
the
you say
problem
that, what does
was?
that report say in totality? When it says there's too much focus on agriculture, the report itself, not what has been reported. The report itself, what does it say? When it says there's
Lack
a lot
of
of focus,
reforms and inadequate negotiation abilities on the part of developing countries are among other challenges that Kenya must address. Lack of reforms.
Yes.
And this is what I'm saying. They're pointing back to lack of innovation, lack of strategic partnerships. And they're saying this is what you need to actually get it out of the way. And I said again, the crux of the matter is that if Kenya continues to do business in the manner in which they've been doing business for the last 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, the forecast is not good. And again,
are you
you're going to
disputing
get...
what they've said? Are you saying that what they've said is not correct?
No, I am saying that there are other factors that need to be taken into consideration that will actually get Kenya's economy back on its knees.
Which is why I'm
And it's
asking you
just that.
not to look at what has been reported, because what has been reported is just a fraction of what is in the report. What has the report said? Does it have others? Because if it does have others, then we cannot come here and tell and say that the World Bank has only focused on these three. Do we know whether those are the only three?
They
Well,
have
we can
focused-
only talk.
we can only talk about what
is
has been
reported.
reported.
Oh no, you can talk about the report.
Well, if
It's
you
not
know
hidden.
more, then you tell us. Eric.
It's not
What
hidden.
has,
What I'm challenging Ndu to tell us is look at the report and tell us this report.
I am telling you-
Actually, I am supporting Ndu on this one. Our job is not to discuss the report. Not really.
No.
If
Our
there
job is not to
if
discuss the
there's- If
newspaper.
there's an article, we are discussing the newspaper.
Yeah,
and
but
the
our
content.
job is not necessarily to discuss the newspaper and in totality and say because of what is in the newspaper, this is the entirety of the report. No,
But
bring
he
the
hasn't
report.
said it isn't the entirety of the report. We've been discussing the BBI here for the longest time.
Yes, and we
And
looked
we've
at
been
the
to-
BBI itself.
Yes,
Did we
but,
not?
Yes, but did we look at all the items in the BBI?
No,
The
we
answer is
don't.
No,
But
we
every
didn't.
single
time
item.
we discuss the BBI, we talk about the BBI in reference to the report itself.
Yes, but
We can look
But
at
we're
what
talking about this
we can
in
look-
reference to the report.
We can look at
And
what
one
has
of the
been
main-
covered, and then we say
main
these are part
factor-
of these are part of
main
the things that are
factor
contained
was
in the
that
report
Kenya
because
has
we know the
focused on
report.
agriculture and the manner in which they do business. If they continue doing business in this way, it is going to be much darker. Where we have the CBK telling us that the other elements that they have looked at and they have been able to see that in the next 1 year, if they do 1, 2, 3, they'll be able to get Kenya off of the knee status in which it currently is in. And this is
And
the
I'm
thing.
saying
The
those two
crux of the
statements
matter- the
are not
crux-
going against one another.
the
What the
crux
world,
of the
what
ma-
the World Bank is saying and what the CBK is saying, they are not. Are they in conflict? They are not.
The crux of the matter here is that the
It's
World
what
Bank
which
report,
one is emphasizing.
it has emphasized on the fact that agriculture has been focused on by the Kenyan government and the Kenyan economy for too long.
and it's going to kill us.
And it is, if you don't change from that focus, it is going to get worse. That is what they are saying.
And I'm asking, are you disputing that? Are you saying that this is wrong? Are you saying that they are
Actually,
wrong in this report?
Let me say what I am saying. I am saying they may say what they like to say, but I believe that we are not going to fail as a result of what they're reporting. I am saying that what the central bank governor is saying makes more sense. And given that, why do you think I went to this tirade of World Bank failures? There are many successes. I wasn't bothering with that. I'm bothering with the failures. If you have a track record of not keeping promises, if you have a track record where over the last decade your projects have displaced something like 3.4 million people, and then you're coming to tell us that we should just take what you tell us wholesale without querying it, no. I would rather believe our central bank governor, whose track record, as far as I'm concerned,
Without querying
is
it.
better. I will query it, but I'd
Who has
rather
come
believe
from the
it.
same institution?
I would
point-
rather believe the World Bank governor over this matter.
Who has come from the same institution? So when the World Bank governor was in that institution, you wouldn't believe him, but when he comes now to this other side, you believe him.
Eric, but
Just
at
because he has
what
changed the
point
shirt.
did Dr. Njoroge have opinions on these matters in the World Bank that I had an opportunity to even look at? None.
the
He was
people
a
who-
functionary in that system.
Yeah, but the people who produce these reports are people like Dr. Njoroge.
They are not Dr. Njoroge. That's the point. And they don't work for the Central Bank of Kenya. That's the other point.
It's actually Miss Goldberg Wang, who is actually working for the World Bank, who resides in New York, and she was the chief behind this report. Not
All
a
right.
Kenyan,
Yes.
not an African in this case.
She's the one who signed the report. Who did
And
the
not,
work on
and
the
not the
ground?
governor of the CBK.
CBK.
It's 27 minutes to 9 o'clock. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
All right, finally, some movement on Mombasa Road, looking a little better than it was before. Let's see that we can get people out there with the information that you give us. All right, Langata Road, unfortunately, is not moving. We have traffic coming off from the southern bypass that is now joining. And we see the problem is that quite a lot of VIPs using Langata Road to get out, and we have quite the overlap situation. Stop it, folks. We need to get people moving, and it's not fair. Everybody stick to your lane, basically, and you'll get out faster than you would if you try to overlap. Okay. Coming off of Westlands, of course, around other parts of the city is not so bad. It's moving, coming off Thika Road as well and into the city centre. Trying to get out of Nairobi also, not a problem in either direction that you look at it. Unless we see something out of the ordinary, please do let us know. Spice FM KE on Twitter or 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up
Join
yourself.
the conversation this and every morning on our social media platforms.
Mornings
Spice FM
done
KE,
right.
Facebook, we're live streaming,
94.4
as well as
Spice
YouTube,
FM,
Spice
Nairobi.
KE. We're also live streaming on Twitter at Spice FM KE. You can tag us on all your comments and questions at Spice FM KE, at CT Muga, at Nduoko, at Eric Latif. Now let's spell Nduoko, Nduokoh.
Good job.
And CT Muga and Eric Latif, ERICLATIFF. Discussing the two institutions. Well, no, just discussing the Bretton Woods institutions and the kind of reports that they keep bringing out, and the kind of advisories that they give all over the world, not just in Africa or in Kenya, but just all over the world. This is an institution. These are institutions, the Bretton Woods institutions, that employ top of the cream of the cream, right? Of many economies. So they go around, like the World Bank office in Nairobi, which has also the IFC and the IMF. They have people whose job it is to study what is happening in the economy. The same thing that you have at the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, we have them in Upper Hill working. And if they work and they produce a report and they are looking over time, they've seen this is what has been happening to the agricultural sector in Kenya. For instance, this is what has been happening to the manufacturing sector in Kenya. Compare this to what's happening in other parts of the world. We have the benefit of accessing information from Sri Lanka, from Nepal, from Myanmar, from Europe, from Eastern Europe. We have all that. So we can compare and see what is it that a country that is like Kenya doing and is working or is not working. And then they come with that and they give you an advisory report and tell you, look, this is what we advise. This is what's happening. This is what we see. Your economy is likely to grow to this level. Your agricultural sector is likely to suffer. Your agricultural sector is likely to improve if you do all these things. We have seen the kind of policies. They have access to the policies that of our government. They look at them and see this policy can be supported by these actions and this legal framework. What's wrong with that?
Things don't have to be concluded by whether they're wrong or right, but rather than what
is unbelievable about that?
No available perspectives. I don't know of any country except immediately after the war, when they were rebuilding Germany, and then Germany became what it is. But it didn't just become what it is because of the Marshall Plan. It's how they implemented it, how they took it on, and the decisions that they made as a country to move forward.
Right.
So they were able to benefit from that. Their thinking and the way they did things. My argument is that if they gave advice and we were able to apply what we know can work for us to work, instead of them insisting, my beef is they insist. They insist on how. That's where now the beef comes in. That insistence and the attendant results that tend to follow. If it was a success story throughout, we'd say let's listen to World Bank. They know what they're doing, and we could. But unfortunately, that has not been the case. So when they say something, you listen and say, "Okay, we've heard you." But if there's another voice, we listen to that voice and say, "Yeah, this voice makes more sense." That's what we're doing. That's what I am doing right now.
You're choosing the one that's not telling you harshly, basically.
No, it's not harshly.
Because you're thinking that this one, because this report, for example, this new report by the World Bank, it's not telling you do this. It's just a report. It's just suggesting.
They never write to do this, Eric. That's what they do behind the scenes. The term conditionalities came into this country because of that. What do you think they were? Conditions. by which you must abide in order for you just not receive the money, but by which you must implement it. That's what those conditionalities were. Some of these things are good, like they would insist on good governance, makes a lot of sense. That's on the one hand, the World Bank does that. The lending arm doesn't give a hoot about it
No.
Yep.
and just lends money to whoever they want willy-nilly. So all I'm saying is that I have taken these things into consideration. And given that we are discussing something that involves this country, and the talk that we're hearing is from someone, as you say correctly, who works for the World Bank and knows how they work, and has probably read this report
Right.
and understands it better than I do,
Interestingly enough,
and
right.
he is saying this, I believe this other person. That's all I'm saying.
And what I'm trying to remind you here is, and point out, is when the central bank governor is talking about whatever he's saying, he's not saying, look, this is contrary to what the World Bank is saying.
You know, it's
No,
you
he
who's
doesn't
saying
even
this,
bring
Eric.
it. Look,
Exactly.
It's
So
not even
it's
part
you
of
who's
his
saying that.
discussion.
The issue of
I
saying
haven't
that
said
I
it's
believe one,
contrary.
I believe
he's
one and not the other.
He's
is,
not marrying it at all.
so why do you choose to believe one and not the other? Over what?
Why shouldn't I?
So one person says, I'm selling mangoes in Garissa. Another person is saying, I'm selling tomatoes in Mombasa. I choose to believe this person telling me
I
about
choose
selling mangoes
to,
in...
I like the idea of tomatoes, and I'm going to go with the idea of tomatoes. Forget the mangoes. So it's that simple.
It doesn't change the fact that this guy is still selling mangoes in Mombasa, in
Yes,
Garissa.
and I'm saying I don't care.
Yes, you know what I'm
I
saying?
think you need to understand
What I'm trying to
saying.
understand is, when you say
At the
I
end of the
choose...
day, it holds no relevance in
To
this
me,
case,
as far as I'm concerned.
especially because of the fact that just 20 years ago, the same World Bank, in giving its forecast about Kenya right around this time, because we're looking at the 2020 report, and this report comes out every year at this time, and this is what they talk about. Just 20 years ago, they talked about an imminent collapse of the Kenyan economy. Complete, as in it was going to be on its knees
Yep.
if you didn't do this. Kenya didn't necessarily do those things. And this is the same Kenya we're talking about today that, yes, is still suffering as an economy. However, the person who is at the vanguard of the economy, as it were, is saying that, look, this is what we are going to do. Yes, this is what we've seen. We've struggled, but there are certain factors that we've seen that we would blame for this. However, there are certain measures also that we will put in place that will make sure that we don't get to that knee status. All right? So if this is the gentleman who is here on the ground and definitely has the interests of this country at heart to the core,
You know, that
is the one who is giving this report and giving this information, I'm saying yes, take it all with a pinch of salt.
You know, the business, what we are talking about, that what we're referring to as a report from the World Bank is a business pitch. Because
Exactly, and it happens every year.
It's a pitch.
That's
It
how you choose
happens
to see
every
it.
year.
It's a pitch.
They want money.
Yes, that's what I'm choosing to see. And at the end of it, they will come up with a solution and tell us, you know, if we lend you this in this sector, and
You
if
can
build
do this and the other.
Yes, it's a pitch. Meaning, since I'm telling you you'll have a problem, let me tell you how to solve this problem I am telling you have.
Because it's interesting and just look at the way in which it has been framed. This is the problem. This is what we see. This is what you have done. And if you continue doing this, this is where you will be.
What is this report, by
There's
the way?
nothing like...
What's the particular report? Is it the economic outlook, the economic survey, the poverty index? Which one is it?
Okay, so what we are looking at now, essentially, just hold on, just to make sure. So now you've thrown me off guard because now you're trying to get me to find the name of the report, and here it is that the World Development Report 2020, Trading for Development in the Age of Global Value Chains. All right, and this was launched again in Nairobi yesterday, and it is one that they do every year, and there's a focus on this year. It's global value chains, and they're saying that Africa, of course, giving specific attention to Kenya in this case, because you will have that the different offices around the world, of course, are giving their reports as per the country where they reside or where they are domiciled. So now in this case, of course, in turn with the global economy, Kenya is doing very, very poorly. And as for the country itself, where it stands, will continue to do poorly and even worse if they continue in this way. This is what we're saying. Again, I do agree that it would be a pitch because you're told this is the way it has been. This is the way it currently is. This is the way it's going to be if you continue in the way you're going to be, and then it stops.
But if you
It
say
stops.
Let's hear
because, of
from
course, the
Lydia.
next question is then, what should we do?
Let's
Okay,
hear from Lydia. Lydia, good morning.
Good morning, Spice FM.
How
Thank
are
you
you
for
doing?
this good subject. Thank you. I'm fine. I've got experience working with World Bank and Commerce and Industry and whatever during Kibaki's time.
Yep.
I complained under United Business Association that now that Daniel Arap Moy made a roadside law and moved the trade license to City Council, they stopped dealing with your water, they stopped dealing with the bins, and it was World Bank who set up the water system you would never be able to drink water today. Then you have to complain, and then they take action. They employ lawyers and NGOs to go to each door-to-door ministry and sit with them and draw up the plan. They employ the NGOs and advocates to set up its history. They record everything that is done, and the World Bank has to pay them to set up. KRA and the bloated government doesn't want to do anything. They don't want to take a broom in their hand at all. So World Bank looks for who can do the sweeping and cleaning, and then pay them to get things done. Thank you. I could tell you a long story, but I don't want to take time.
Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you very much, Lydia. What are your views on this as well? 0719-012-600.
You see, Eric, why you hear me sticking to this point and not moving is this. I also understand the ownership of the World Bank. In theory, it's supposed to belong to the United Nations group. But if you ask the next question, then those who own it are the people who contribute to it. So there are member countries who actually are part and parcel of this group. They're the ones who put the money. The United Nations doesn't have money of its own. People give it money.
Yeah.
Now, if you take this further, the individual institutions within the World Bank, depending on which member country contributes money to it, so in essence, is controlled by that particular member country. So if we keep talking about, you've heard people talk about World Bank as being a tool for neocolonialism. That is not my discussion today. My discussion is this. There will be interests that people have that go beyond what is stated. That is really what I'm saying. If you look at the composition of the World Bank and how it is owned and who owns it, is it then difficult to see how it is those policies will not be what they stated to be? And how it will actually be serving a particular interest?
In this case, it's not difficult at all to see the reason why, and then to see that why would that would be. It's not difficult at all then to understand and say, well, this is why we see what we see. Of course, looking at who is at the helm of the World Bank.
Okay, you guys are just too negative for me this morning. 14 minutes to 9 o'clock. Good morning, and how are you doing? This is the situation. Please call in and contribute to this conversation. 0719-012-600. You can also contribute to the conversation on our Twitter handle, SpiceFMKE. On Facebook, we'll have a live stream there, SpiceFMKE. Good morning.
Spice FM. Nyeri. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 90.
So we're looking at that report, right? It's the World Bank Quad report. It's a Trading for Development in the Age of the Global Value Chains, right? The World Development Report 2020, produced by the World Bank Group. And there's some things that it's telling us. It's looking at the world in totality. Has a global picture of things. In this country, this is what's happening. In this region, this is what's happening. In this part of the world, in continent, this is what's happening. And then it just basically just says, from what we are seeing, we project this and we would like to caution on this. What's wrong with that? I keep asking this. I mean, why?
Where does wrong come into this discussion?
It doesn't have to be
why do you
right
have to
or
keep
wrong.
saying, this? I choose not to believe this
But
report
where
because
does
of
wrong-
who
where
owns
does
this.
wrong come into
because
this?
of who owns the other.
No, where does wrong
I am
come
moving
into
away
this?
from the word wrong, and I'm now using a whole sentence so that you don't have to pin me on just the word wrong.
Don't worry, I'll find something else to pin you on. But just carry on.
Yes.
Yes.
Why do you find fault on what they're saying?
Because of their track record.
They've
And
said this
because
every
of their
year.
composition, because of their
Has the
ownership.
world collapsed? They don't always.
If we were discussing this topic
No,
last
actually,
year, I would have been saying the same thing and giving the same examples and adding nuance. That's what I'd be doing.
I would like to look at the history of these reports that they've given, but just from what I'm able to see now, I don't think there's a report where they've talked about the fact that Africa or Africa's countries, or even Kenya, if you want to look at Kenya, in their existence, have ever talked about the fact that, yes, they're actually doing better, or that the outlook or the forecast is actually vibrant and robust, and saying that,
Oh,
yes,
yes,
they're
they do
actually...
that.
Oh,
They have.
really?
Yes, they do. They
And
do.
what have been the
In fact,
attributes
even in
that-
this
They
report,
do.
I'm just looking at
They
the
do.
report. It's very
They
many
do.
pages. I'm sure I'll find a place where it's saying that there has been tremendous improvement in this area and the other. And this is where the continent
And
is.
after that statement,
And after that statement, Kenya and Africa
Doom and
still
gloom.
remains.
There'll always be
still
their bats.
remains. I'll
The
give you the
doom and gloom.
number.
Yes.
I'll give you the number. Still remains in the 3% of contribution on a global scale of imports and exports, for example. And this can be directly attributed to the fact that the way in which business has been done on a national level cannot continue to be the case in the future.
but they do
There
have
you
a
go.
case.
It's a truth. It's a
Well,
truth.
This, yeah, it can be, but sticking on agriculture again is the thing that they do. Still sticking on agriculture,
Yes.
and that has not been the only reason why this economy has gone the way it has gone.
Why don't you want
It
to be
is
told
not-
that? Why don't you want to just be told this is how you look, Ndu? This is it.
I don't think
through your lens?
Yeah.
Yes.
Through your lens.
No.
Through your lens.
I'm just holding a mirror.
Through-
This is you.
You
Can
Then
you
don't tell
remove,
me
can you
no,
remove
no.
that
You-
pink tint from that mirror before
who-
putting it in my face?
in the you whose mirror it is, and you who has manufactured this mirror, and the way in
A
which
mirror
you
is
must
a mirror.
No,
is a mirror.
it can be a two-way
my dear,
mirror. It's
Omo,
still a mirror.
No.
A two-way mirror does not distort your.
Of course it does,
Of course it
especially
does.
if there's a blue background.
Of course it does. Of course it does. And we can't ignore the fact. If we decide to ignore the fact that there's an interest that lies behind of all of this, we would be extremely myopic in terms of how we look at things. You can't ignore the fact that there's a control element that is there, and there's an interest, there's a self-interest element that obviously plays itself out here. And it is clear and it is obvious. It is interesting to me that even in the light of all of this, like you said, Dr. Njoroge knows very well that this report comes out every year. It is by no coincidence that he was also giving his report yesterday. Even in what they said, we have told you that this is what we see, this is how we see things going.
Can I read just 3 paragraphs from the preface of this
Read,
report?
read, by all
Read very
means,
well.
read, please.
The growth of international trade and expansion of global value chains over the last 30 years have had remarkable effect on development. Incomes have risen, productivity has grown up, particularly in developing countries, and poverty has fallen. The fragmentation of production and knowledge transfer inherent in GVCs are in no small part responsible for these advances. Hyper-specialization by firms at different stages of value chains enhances efficiency to capital and inputs along value chains. At this moment, however, there is reason to worry that this trade-led path to development is under threat. Although trade bounced back after the global financial crisis of 2008, the high growth rates of the 1990s and 2000s have remained elusive. GVCs, that's the global value chains, account for around half of the world trade today. And trade in intermediate products also stalled in 2008. Countries can do much more on their own to reinvigorate world trade and GVC expansion. With that in mind, this report sets out a comprehensive domestic agenda for governments, investments in connectivity, improvements in business climate, and unilateral reductions in trade and investment barriers. It's an overview. This is their thinking. Their thinking is, yes, there's been tremendous improvement. There are some serious threats that lie on the way, and this is our advice on how to navigate those threats. This is it. Now you want them to just keep telling you things are looking good, there's no threat anywhere, everything is looking good. And if they tell you there's threat there, you start asking them, but who owns you?
At the end
Well,
of the day, they tell you things are looking good.
well, actually,
There's no money or
if-
support you're going to get from
I
them
want
in
to
any
throw
way,
some
shape, or
figures at
form.
Eric. Yes, they are talking about poverty reduction. Yet you have reports that tell you that in 1990, way back, the people who were living with below the poverty line were 278 million, all right, in Africa. And that in 2015, the numbers were now 413 million. Is that a reduction
Percentages.
of?
Give us the percentages
Of?
the population. What
Of-
percentages of the population was it in the 1990s that was poor? What percentage of the population in the 2000s is poor? Has there been an increase in population?
Yes, there has.
All right. So is that commensurate to the number of people who are still poor? I mean,
So what you're asking
you brought
me
up
is
this
that-
argument a couple of weeks back. You are the same person who said, don't just look at numbers, look at percentages in terms of numbers.
But I actually like what you're saying because I am going to give you the figures. Because the 422 million I'm talking about, it represents 70% of the world's poorest people, just for starters. And most of them are found in sub-Saharan Africa.
Sub-Saharan
Right.
Africa.
Yes.
Right.
So my argument is a very simple one, and that is the people who are poor in numbers, sheer numbers, have not actually decreased. As the population has increased, the number of poor people has also increased. That is what I'm putting across. That's actually what I am telling you.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
What this report is saying from its own data is that, yes, there is. It's not saying that there's no poverty in the world. It's saying that there has been improvement in a number of areas. There has been improvement in terms of growth. There has been improvement in terms of, there has been improvement in terms of reduction of poverty.
There is an improvement in terms of projections
You can-
because this is what a lot of these
Not just
reports talk
projections.
about.
This is looking back.
Yes.
From the 90s to
Yes.
today, it's saying that there has been a reduction in the levels of poverty.
What I know,
If the people who were poor because they were at this level of poverty, now the people
they are
who
now
are
poor because they are at
they're
a
at
slightly
certain
higher
le-
level.
Slightly higher level
That
of poverty.
I believe is absolutely true. And I also believe that in terms of the increase of people who qualify to be in the middle class, those numbers have increased. But the increase of our population is not actually represented in the middle class. They are represented in, well, the percentage of people who are poor. Today, earlier, we read, Eric, that 9 in 10 people in this country are poor.
poor.
That wasn't the case 10 years ago. So if one were to argue that we are reducing the the level of poverty, it means that the number of poor people is being reduced. And unfortunately, these are our own reports, And then UNICEF have come in and they're telling us it's not true. It isn't the case. These are also UN bodies. If we were to say that these fellows have a veracity of doing things and they are good, they are good. They are accurate. They do have professionals who actually know what they are doing. I am simply saying that some of these things they say are not all-encompassing, and so they're not entirely true.
Well, it's interesting that also, I mean, just a few days ago, we had President Uhuru announcing that there was a stimulus package for the economy that targeted, interestingly enough, agriculture, subsectors like dairy, coffee, and the likes, tea as well. And so, of course, still going back to agriculture and saying this is the way that we are going to get our economy on its head again, regardless of this. Okay, regardless of the fact that saying that, even this report saying that you focus too much on it, you need to do business in a different kind of way.
On value chains. Remember, this is about value chains, right?
Of course.
So if it's saying
Still-
that your value chain focus is a lot on agriculture, and it's true. We look at value chain, we think about value chain in agriculture. From what point, from production all the way to market, and how you can improve efficiency in the entire value chain. Our focus is a lot there. So if it's saying that, yes, you guys have a lot of focus in agriculture, it's not saying that it's a bad thing. It's saying that, okay, if you focus so much on that, you're forgetting.
No,
Look at the
it's
side mirror.
saying
Look-
it's saying
look
that
at
if
the
you
side mirror.
continue to focus on it in that manner, the forecast is doom and gloom. That's
Yes,
what they've said.
because you're not looking at the side mirror. There are other opportunities.
The people,
Everybody else around you is going to overtake you from others. Rwanda will come up with industrialization. They'll come up with better housing. They'll do ABCD. You guys are still thinking about, value chain for tea, value chain for coffee, value chain for our flowers. Everybody else is thinking. We talk about improving our manufacturing and our technology. You guys are not focusing about value chain in technology. You're thinking value chain agriculture.
So, well, the governor of the central bank has also said, again, that despite the gloomy outlook from the global economy, Kenya's growth will be robust, driven by revitalization of
And he's talking
the
about something
agricultural
different.
sector.
The world, this is the CBK boss. The CBK boss is talking about overall economy. This report, and that's why I was asking about the report. The report is talking about a specific area.
Let me
value
finish.
chain.
He talked about still focusing on Kenya.
Value chains
the
or
growth,
economy?
Value chains directed
Because
to
the
the
World
economy.
Bank report on the economy
Value
has
chains
been,
will not stand on
the
their
World
own,
Bank
my
effect-
friend.
the World
When you're
Bank-
talking
the
about
World
global
Bank
value
report-
chains, you will not stand on your own. It is countries. It is countries that are.
World Bank
It is
report
countries
on
that are
economy
dealing with each
has
other.
been- the World Bank report on economy
and it's
points
talking
a
about
positive image for Kenya. It says that Kenya's economy is still growing. It's growing. It's a positive outlook.
But if
when
you
it comes
continue to
value
do
chain,
business, when it comes to value chain, and if you continue to do business in the way in which you're doing business, this is what the
focusing
forecast
too much
looks
on value
like.
chain,
Yes,
it's gonna affect you. That's
right. But still,
And that's
you
the truth.
still have the government saying that this is where they're going to focus. This is what they're going to focus on.
And that's exactly why the World Bank is saying, look, if you focus so much on value chain alone in this area and you forget about the other areas, doom and gloom. Because you're competing in a global market space.
According to the World Bank,
this is a global
according to the
report.
government of Kenya and the CBK governor, this is
Quote
where we
those
need.
ones. Quote the
this is
CBK
where-
governor on
this
value
is where
chains.
they need to
If you're not
focus
quoting the
on.
CBK governor on value
according
chains,
to them,
you're comparing apples and
according
oranges
to them,
here.
this is where they need to focus on in order to build the economy again. Talking about an economy that's failing, this is what they need to do at the end of the day.
The conversation continues. We see Wilfred, you're trying to call. We need to go to the top of the hour and take a look at traffic. Maybe when you come out of the traffic, we'll take this one phone call and then the conversation continues. 0719 012 600, as well as our digital platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook and Spice FM KE on Twitter. And of course, you can also comment via our YouTube channel, Spice FM KE. Good morning. Coming up to 9 o'clock. This is a situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're broadcasting in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, and Malindi.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Not much better situations coming off Mombasa Road inbound. Nairobi is currently at Mlolongo. There's no longer traffic. It was a catastrophe, but that is looking a lot better at this time. Jogo Road, of course, now looking at what the situation could be there, approaching the City Stadium roundabouts, trying to get into the city or out of the city. Not so bad either. It is moving much better than it was before. So traffic hour is officially over, and then not much problems now, of course, with what we still have on Langata Road today. So approach the area with caution and let us know if there's something that you should see. There's been no incidents really today, just a lot of traffic. It's still wet on some roads in the city, so please be careful as you navigate. Spice FM KE will let you know what it looks like in about half an hour and see if there's anything that we need to be concerned about. 0719 012 600 is the number to call as well.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2 minutes after 9. Good morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We are on 94.4 in Nairobi. We're in Malindi, 97.7, Nyeri, 90.9, 96.7, Eldoret, Nakuru, 96.0, 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, and 94.4 in Nairobi. City Muga, let's talk about a tragedy that's unfolding around the world, right? This is the big epidemic.
Well, coronavirus. It hasn't actually reached epidemic proportions.
Not yet, huh?
No, but it could actually head there, given what it is and what it represents. But to understand it and to contextualize it, no World Bank discussions here. Okay, no World Bank influence, no World Bank intervention. Whenever there's an outbreak of diseases and it's large enough to encompass not just large areas, but it then influences and affects the lives of many people to the point of killing them, we normally call it an epidemic. But these epidemics, as we call them, are as old as time itself. Long before the invention of penicillin or antibiotics as we now know them, any disease that arose from even something as simple as a wound could actually kill you, and this was something that was fairly treatable. Modern science reduced this to a great degree, but some of them had nothing to do with modern science per se. They had to do with human habits and human habitation. Like if you look at the world, say, of plagues as we know it, dating back to the early centuries, long before even the 19th century, when most of these so-called advances were made. You know, you go back as something called the Antonine Plague. This was famous in this sense. It happened in Rome, and oddly enough, it might have actually killed 2 emperors. And Antonine was actually the name given to it because one of the emperors who was killed was actually called Marcus Aurelius, but his family name was Antonine. So they decided to give this plague the name Antonine. But many of the diseases that people have, and why you see this clamor for closing down, quarantine, it's as old as time itself. When there's a disease, you want to ensure you contain it within the area that is most prevalent. Now, one of the plagues, as we know it, again, plagues, epidemics, same thing, that have killed the largest number of people on this planet was that called the Black Death.
The bubonic plague.
Bubonic plague. In China alone, many people don't know this, but it killed an astounding 12 million people. Astounding. At that particular point in time, of course, the population of the world, population was probably just, 450 million or so. Now, in terms of numbers, you would argue that currently what the coronavirus has done is killed people, 1,000 plus? But if you give the place of those numbers and you look at the advancement of modern technology and medicines and health advances, those numbers are alarming. What I'm saying is this. The history of epidemics is well known. The approaches that have been held for epidemics is well known. The successes of these initiatives are well known. Here in Kenya, we've had a problem with HIV, and the advances made in reducing new infections and in controlling the disease and keeping people alive, the records are astounding as they are beautiful. The problem with the virus is that it has no known treatment. Bacterial diseases, infection diseases, the cures are known. If we approach this particular matter of the coronavirus in the same way we've approached the issues of floods and droughts and locusts in this country, the problem will not be the outbreak of a coronavirus in China or in some of the developed countries. For us, it will be a genuine problem because we'll have been dealing with it by using words, we'll be saying things that we ought to be done and saying things that we have. But should it turn out that the numbers are actually large enough to cause a panic, then the likelihood of very many Kenyans dying from such a disease in this country, given our track record of handling problems, would be vast. And in that case, it would be a genuine epidemic, and it would be perhaps an introduction of what you call a Black Death into our country.
I think that there are several positives coming out of the world on this epidemic. One, there is concerted effort. You can see when we see such epidemics coming out or springing up, the world makes a concerted effort at addressing it. So it gets the prominence that it deserves across the globe. So this is not just a China problem, it's a world problem.
It's a world problem because it's a disease that the main carrier is a human being.
It could spread.
Yes, and if you look at
easily.
globalization and the ease with which people travel and the ease with which we are told by even WHO that this disease can spread, it is scary. All someone needs to do is cough in your presence. All they need to do is breathe near you. Here it's not HIV where some sexual contact is required. No. This one will get you just by virtue of proximity.
Proximity to somebody.
Yes, so the alarm is understood. More so when you understand the frequency with which other parts of the globe have been visiting China. And the frequency of the movements within China.
But when you look at how the country has immediately deployed, for example, its alert systems. So at the airport or ports of entry, we understand that the flights that are arriving from China, in fact, the screening happens even before you disembark from the plane. Even when you're inside the plane, the person who's been quarantined at KNH apparently had already been isolated, even on the plane, because they started exhibiting some symptoms and the crew had been put on alert and told, this is what you do. So the person had been put aside, and then they arrived here and they were immediately taken to KNH because there had been an alert system in place. If you look at that, don't you think that's already positive? It shows that
it is positive.
that we're already doing
It is
something.
as positive as when we had a mudslide in the North Rift, and we were told that there was a helicopter which carried 40 doctors had gone there, and there was a flurry of information that was given in the same way we're given information when we had a disaster of the ferry at the Likoni crossing, and there was a flurry of activity. There was a reshuffling of the board. My problem is not with
not the
what
same.
already in place.
No,
It
no,
is
it's not the
because we have a situation where solutions are talked about because they actually exist, but as to whether they are actually used, it becomes I was actually going to bring in the locusts into the discussion.
And this is where I'm saying it's
another
not, it's
one.
not the
Yes.
same, because in this particular case, right, we are seeing that is already in place.
Eric, if
There's
you go to the airport,
screening happens
it has
on a
always
regular,
been there.
on a
It
regular
started
basis
those
at the
early
airport.
days when
of
we had the
Ebola.
scare of, even before Ebola, the flus. That when you
The
come
global
into this
flus,
country, believe
bird
me,
flu and the rest.
the health department at the port has always had that. You may not notice because it's not obtrusive,
Yes,
but it is there, and they check you. It's always been
and
there.
they check you.
They
So
always
they do what they're supposed to do.
They do what
And that's
they're
why I'm
supposed
saying
to
in
do.
this particular case, this is different, because this is how it happens. They're actually people who are doing what they're supposed to do.
They always are, Eric.
as opposed to the example that you're giving us in comparison, the port, the ferry.
Okay.
The ferry, there's a disaster management, there's a disaster
Before
SOP,
it became a disaster, there was a report that these ferries were a problem and they
Yes.
were likely to cause a problem.
and
It was
people did not, in that case, people did not do what they were supposed to do.
Oh, actually, they did. They floated a tender, and they were in the process of acquiring. I'm just telling you, yes.
Okay, it took a while, you see?
It always takes a while.
There you
This is
go.
the point I'm trying to
But in
make.
the case of these health issues, it's not about taking a
Eric,
while.
one
It's
person,
ongoing.
because a system is in place, even when we had rains and floods, believe me, there are people who are doing what they were supposed to do. Please follow my argument. It isn't an epidemic. If it does become an epidemic, this is what I am saying.
We'll be
the number-
strained.
We not strained. It'll be a catastrophe. Forget strained.
Of course, it will be a catastrophe.
One person.
Look at what is happening to China.
Okay,
An
it's
entire
interesting because this is
population.
what look what's coming out of the world, because I tend to lean in this direction also, because the time to prevent it from being an epidemic is actually now, when the cases are few and can be isolated. So this is the time where a lot needs to be done to put a lot of these things in place. We've had one person that has come, just looking at Kenya as an example, we've had one person that has come into the country. They've been quarantined. We're waiting for the results. I think it's going to take some time. Maybe today is when the information then will be shared.
Yeah.
This is the time to make sure that all the talking that could be done, do it now. Then let it now follow with some action. It is the time now. Because if we also want to look at the traffic between China and Kenya, just as an example, it is quite high numbers, to the point whereby some airlines are actually being asked to shut down, their
Operations from those
operations between the two. So it's quite high in terms of the traffic. So of course there already is that fear that if the numbers increase, there could be a problem here. So this is what I think a lot, and not just Kenya, other countries are then being encouraged. Before the cases go beyond isolated, before they go beyond just a few, seize the moment to protect selves against this virus, against this outbreak is what we see it. Because what are we looking at in China right now, vis-a-vis the population? You're looking at almost 8,000 infected, almost 200 dead, right? I think the number was about 180. As of this morning. But this is what we're looking at. If you want to look at that vis-a-vis the population of China, okay, it's not that much. But it is huge in terms of the people who've been dropping, and to the point whereby these two hospitals or these two health centers then were created were established over the last 1 week, right? This is the time to do something about it, when we are still at that one who has been able to come into
What
Kenya.
is this something that we need to do?
Well, are we making sure that all our checks and balances are in place? Are we making sure that if in the event that we say 2, 3, 4, 5 people then have been able to cross over, remembering that it is person-to-person contact, are we saying that what we have is enough? The scanning or the viewing at the airport is enough? The quarantine centers that we have, if we get to the point whereby it's going to be more, is enough? Because it's not just by chance that this person got beyond Kenyan borders.
Yeah.
Especially when we're looking at the traffic that we have. I think again presents a unique opportunity to be prepared for something.
Would you be asking the government to start setting up new tents just in case we're waiting, in case we have more people coming in that we need capacity for 100?
It's not something we need to do. The World Health Organization already has gone into overdrive. China has already allowed the World Health Organization to come into their country to assist. And what the WHO do? We will come up with guidelines.
Yes.
We don't even need to do this.
Yeah.
They'll come up with
They're
guidelines.
already there. The protocols are in place.
Yes, do this, do the other, do the other. That's it. Up to that point, everything is okay. And with us, it's always okay up to that point. The documentation bit, you can't fault us. It is what happens after that. You see, remember, we know this. This particular virus has an incubation period of, 2 weeks. We know. Not years, 2 weeks. We also know that about the symptoms, dry throat, this, the other. So you're told, drink a lot of water. It's not that we don't know what should be done. So far, it isn't an issue. But what's alarming, the numbers in China have outstripped those of the SARS. As we speak now, there are 3 cases in Japan. The question that actually came to my mind when I was reading this is, it is a flu, it kills people. Any disease kills people. Cancer kills people, HIV killed people. But the world seems to be on overdrive over this issue. So I asked, what is it that is known to these people that we don't know? Because this is genuine overdrive. With SARS, you didn't hear of all these events. Everything that's happening now is new.
This one looks to be spreading a bit faster. It's killing more people and such kind of things.
It kills people quicker.
It kills people quicker, and I think that's the thing that
Reaction
they're looking
time
at. By
is
the
slow.
time,
And the
by the
lessons
time
also
they're
taken from
actually able
Ebola.
to, right?
Yes, and also the symptoms are not dissimilar to other ailments.
Yes.
This is the problem.
Let's go to the phone lines. We have a caller calling in. Ray, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good
We're
morning.
fine, thank you. How is Mombasa?
Mombasa is good. Thanks for asking. Great insights.
Yes.
I just wanted to, air my views, but also have someone kind of look into the fact that we are hearing there's this patient who was admitted at KNH, right?
Yes.
And apparently, I think the feedback from the airlines and the media is that she was quarantined or he was quarantined in the plane.
Yes.
How do you quarantine someone in a plane? Just out of curiosity.
Maybe
Not
You
quarantined,
get what I'm
basically,
saying?
just
Like,
isolated.
So, but isolated how? When you're breathing the same air, she has or he has to go to the bathroom, unless he's in the cockpit, which is impossible.
Yeah.
Have you thought of
also-
the bathroom being the place of quarantine as well?
Oh my God! I asked for a refund. No, but what I'm just trying to say is, I think in handling, and I agree with you, Siti, that this could turn out to be a catastrophe if we're not transparent and we're not honest about how we're handling the cases.
Yep.
For me, I'm really fearing for it because, in Kenya, we're always touching everybody, saying hi to everyone by hand, People don't believe in personal space. Someone is in their space, like coughing and thinking it's okay in the bank. So, and we've kind of embraced it, like it's a way of life, So you can imagine, should should this flu come into Kenya, there'll be, as you said, a lot of people affected, in one way or the other. And then another thing is also, I think, as employers, to be able to recognize the fact if someone is ill, they should stay home. Otherwise, if they come in, then it's just going around,
Yep.
Yeah, so I think we have, yes, a cultural impact on how it could have, how the disease could spread should it come to Kenya. But we also, as the people who are governing us and the people who are handling it in terms of like health and also airlines, etc., and even the ambassador. I think the ambassador even advised KQ I didn't want to mention the airlines, but KQ to kind of cease flying in the meantime until we get more information.
Yep.
But it hasn't happened yet. So I think people now need to be sober about the illness and see if other people are taking a lot
Serious
of
precautions.
I think serious
Would be the
precautions, then we should do the same. Yeah, we should do the same. Is it Australia where they're actually placing everyone that they're bringing in from Wuhan? into an island. They are putting them on an island. You can imagine
Well,
how serious that is.
they have practice with putting people on islands and
Yes.
such places. It's part of their heritage.
Thank you very much, Ray. Have a good day.
You're welcome. All right.
Thanks, Ray.
18 minutes past 9 o'clock. Let's take a look at the weather and then continue the conversation.
24/7. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic
Make
ballads.
some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Well, showers are over in Nairobi right now at 18 degrees, and we're going to see slightly overcast conditions throughout the city today. Nakuru right now at 17 degrees, mostly cloudy throughout the day today. Mombasa at 28, and they're going to have mostly sunny conditions throughout the city today. Taking a look at Nyeri weather, currently at 18, and it'll be mostly cloudy. Kisumu, whereby we had showers earlier on, it's now at 20 degrees and mostly cloudy conditions as well. Rain seems to be something that will happen in Malindi later on, but for right now, mostly cloudy with weather conditions at 27 degrees.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
What is of interest is that news coming from Australia is that they've actually managed to recreate the new coronavirus outside China. Now you'll ask, what do you mean recreate? Well, in scientific terms, if you want to find a way of either creating an early diagnosis kit or you want to find a way of creating some form of immunization, you have to understand what this particular creature is. So in the labs, this is a lab-created virus. So they now have an opportunity to test it and determine what will work against it, or what will prevent it, or whatever it is that needs to be done. So it's a step forward, and people are hopeful. Again, the speed with which everything is happening, to me, is astounding. I have never seen such a response, ever.
Quick
ever.
reaction.
Yes. Ebola, from what we know of it, killed people much faster. Much, much faster than
But they were in Africa.
Of course, they were in Africa. Where else do you expect
That's
it to
where the
be?
problem is.
That's the problem. So what you're saying is that you agree that should this thing now hit us or rock us, that we're going to have serious issues.
If it comes to us now, at least we have the international community. They'll be able to move because they can see there's possibilities of it. If it had started here, we're talking about 100, 200 people dead in
They
China.
would have quarantined
In a
the
population
continent.
of 46 million people in China, 200 have died.
So our disaster
We are talking
response-
about many more people dying.
So our disaster response or disaster management,
Our capacity is not
is terrible at best, pathetic.
It's
It's,
not as
one,
good-
it's not terrible. It's just one thing.
It's not as good as what you'd expect, of course, in a place like China. That
So-
in 3 weeks' time, they're actually building a hospital that's going to be able to hospitalize so many people, hundreds of people.
You know, there are
We can't.
this one now places those who've often forwarded the argument of there being a command economy, of there being a center of power focused, a dictatorship. Those who've argued for it, believe me, are going to have a field day.
Oh, absolutely. Because here in this case, it's not a question of should we sit and form a committee on then how we're going to send a report on then what needs to be
The
done.
committee is
Absolutely
formed
Where does the money
not.
come from?
We're talking about, look, it's not about is there money to do this. We're saying, are we
Procurement.
going to save people's lives? Oh yeah, let's move. What did they do? Number one, stop travel in and out of Wuhan. Stop
Immediately.
it. There's nowhere you're going. If you're there, you're
Stay
staying.
there.
You want to go there, forget about it. Then you lock if all of you are sick inside there, be sick inside
Stay
there.
there.
What we'll do, we'll build a hospital so that you can be treated. But are you coming out? No, because we're not going to be able to deal with this drama as we see it. And then they stopped those, so there was no passage of persons, and every necessary machinery was then deployed. Whether you're going to deploy police, whether you're going to deploy ministries of health, defense, whatever, so that people don't move, you do it. All on the say-so of one individual, because he was focused and understood this is what
We need
needs
to act.
to happen.
We need to
and
move.
we need to act now. We're not talking at
And
the
then
problem.
the people
We're not
also
shouting at
understand
it.
when the government says you do.
You do.
In this country, a government has said, "Oh, you people don't move out." We'd be
Lakini
arguing.
naenda kuangalia.
We would be arguing. Oh, why do they want to kill us? They're
The
containing us
person
in
who made
here.
that statement comes from this
Yeah.
particular wing of government.
Yeah.
So actually,
What are his
his intentions.
This thing has happened, no, because it's not your tribe. That's why you're also containing us so that we can all die. This is what will be happening in this country. Now, looking at our disaster preparedness, and of course, I think City, I agree with you here completely. If this thing came to Kenya, our capacity to handle this kind of disaster is zero.
You know, there are people who say we currently have 7,700 people infected. Some say 6,000. But what they agree on is that there are 170 people who've died. 170. 170. Okay, against a population. What's the population of China?
1.4 billion.
Yes, exactly. Now, I'm not minimizing the death. A death is a death and it's painful.
Yeah.
But, again, I'm sitting back and asking, everyone in the world, from WHO to WNO, their cousins, everybody is responding to this. So I have to ask the question, what is their interest?
What don't we know?
Yes, exactly, because it is a virus. People are dying. It is not the first time we've had this sort of outbreak on this planet.
Could it not be that they just don't want people to get sick?
Or maybe it's just picking lessons from how the world reacted to past
To
previous-
Ebola, for example.
Yeah.
Ebola was a
If you start
catastrophe.
with the SARS virus and the others, and the bird flu and the swine flu, and how the world reacted, and now looking at Ebola and the kind of backlash that they got over the response to
or
Ebola.
the handling of it.
The
Right,
handling of
exactly.
Ebola.
First in West Africa and then in DRC. DRC, you cannot ask of any place on this planet where you have natural resources and the very valuable variety centered in one place like DRC. But you didn't see, not this sort of reaction, we don't expect it, even a fraction. People are falling and tripping all over themselves to support
Literally.
China.
Support.
Right.
And China has the ability to
To
sort
do
it
it
out.
on their own. They don't
But
need
they're
help.
tripping over themselves.
This is the thing. And yesterday, China even said to the World Health Organization, you're welcome if you want to
If
come,
you want to come,
and
come.
assist in our
all
strategies.
right.
We've handled the situation, but if you want to come, you're
You come.
welcome. Not please come and help us out. No. You can come, but as far as managing this thing, we're doing okay.
So do you think these global agencies are just looking for relevance?
Not only are they looking
Making
for
noise
relevance,
from outside.
This is now my postulation. This is my theory. Okay, it is beyond any shadow of doubt that China is the most powerful country in the world now. If you're talking numbers, you're talking the economy, you're talking. It doesn't matter what you say.
Most powerful.
They are. It is the sort of reaction that you find people pandering to the rich and to the mighty and to the strong and to the powerful. They are pandering to China. If this had happened in America,
are your friends.
yes, you would see something similar. They would pander. If it happens to a third world banana republic, backward country on this particular continent,
Wow.
sorry,
Nice
sort,
adjectives this
sort
morning.
yourself out.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be some token. Yeah, okay, we managed to find some funds. Okay, perhaps, yeah, maybe. The perhaps and maybe is the dominant conversation. But this one, the movement forward is immense. And yes,
Interesting, because when we talk about what happened with Ebola, I think the response that we saw towards Ebola infections in Africa, whereby we saw a response from other parties, is when their people were directly affected. We saw there was a lot of clamor to help out in Nigeria and Sierra Leone because there were quite a number of Americans who then were in these countries at that time, and they needed to either one, get them helped or get them evacuated, and that helped, and that happened. But truly, in this case, I would say that is it. You kind of leaning on the side of power. You want to have been seen to be aligned to them when they needed quote unquote your help at some point, and you say, yes, we were there, we helped out, we were aligned to them at that point in time. But had it happened anywhere else, I don't think we would have seen this kind of response like with what we've seen with in China. Because everybody is basically
and
lining
yet actually
up
if you look at the
to
world
help
map
out.
of how this virus is spreading as of this morning, 30th of January, right? So what we have is in China we have 7,736 confirmed cases of the virus. Globally 7,800. So where the other almost 100 people or 60 people. Thailand has 14, Singapore 10, Japan 8, Malaysia 7, USA 5, Australia 5, France 5, South Korea 4, Germany 4, UAE 4, Vietnam and Canada 2 each, and then 1 each in Nepal, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Finland, and Angola. These are the confirmed cases. So globally, this thing is in China. And yet the whole world is behaving like, oh my goodness, this thing is a
We're all
global
dying.
epidemic. If you look at it, if you look at these numbers, the confirmed cases, the ones that are not in China are less than 50. Basically, about 70 cases.
It's unprecedented. It's a good thing. They prevented deaths. But I have to ask myself,
What's happening?
I have to.
What else is
Exactly going on.
9:30. Good morning, and how are you doing? This is a situation room. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads, and then the conversation continues, and you can join in the conversation 0719012600, and also you can post your comments on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook and Twitter. And as well, we are seeing a lot of comments. There's somebody who's actually sent us a lot of information coming in from China, from where this is happening. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic
Make
ballads.
some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Okay, so a little bit of the remnants of traffic that's happening on Mombasa Road are looking a little bit better. What we're seeing now is that it takes you 2 hours on Mombasa Road from Gateway Mall to Cabanas and 20 minutes from Cabanas to Islay. My goodness, we've seen quite the traffic situation today, so it's a lot better now. But I guess we're having to brave ourselves for tomorrow. Stay strong, folks. Thika Road still having some issues right around the NYS. Getting into town is posing a little bit of a problem, but a lot better than we were previously. Seems that things seem to have panned out. It's a lot better now, and for those of you who exercise patience, remain strong to fight another day tomorrow. Spice FM KE 0719 012 600.
Up your site, 94.4 Spice FM,
So we have a listener
Nairobi.
who's watching us on our live stream on Facebook from Shanghai, China. This is Lucy, and she sent a couple of statistics here. So this is what's happening within China itself, right? So currently there are over 7,000 people who are infected and 170 deaths in China. In the place where this is concentrated, that is Hubei, where Wuhan is, this is the most affected with the most deaths. And this is where they are. You know, in Hubei, there are 162 people who have died. In the other parts of China, Henan, there was one person dead. Sichuan, one dead. Beijing, one. Shanghai, one. You know, and the other places, there are total confirmed cases, but no reported deaths, all right, around the world. Okay. So this person is saying that she's in Shanghai. And in Shanghai, Pudong is the leading area which has 13 confirmed cases, but 0 deaths. Out of 101 cases, 34 and 14 came from Wuhan and Hubei. This Shanghai itself has a population of 10 million people. 0 deaths. No, one death, right? Technically, what she's saying is, and what they have been told by the administration, we have a less chance of contacting this virus. Within China, there are places where it's already been so well contained within Wuhan, that the likelihood of it spreading to other parts of China has been reduced.
Look at that.
Drastically.
Interestingly enough, within the country, there's a lesser chance of people getting infected than there is of people outside of the country being affected. Because if we're looking at then people leaving, and I think, of course, when you want to look at the containment that has happened and the measures that have then been taken to make sure that you don't have a catastrophe on your hands, then you want to then look
China
at pointed leadership and how that
and remember,
can come
this
into play.
is the time when you have the world's largest human movement, right? This is the Chinese New Year period. They've basically
and it
said
isn't a day like Christmas.
It's not a day.
It's a period.
It's a period of celebration. It's for about
3 billion journeys
People
within 2
moving.
weeks.
Yes.
3 billion journeys, 2 weeks. And China has said, okay, guys,
Stop.
This is where we are. Stop.
Even
No
this one that
movement.
is world known,
Stop.
No
world
movement.
renowned in terms of a
Here we are.
celebration, is
Forget it.
not going to happen.
And they
Even
have
movement
contained it.
between Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan. Stop.
They have contained it.
This issue, people coming from mainland, the disease they say is coming from mainland. Forget that
Forget
movement.
it.
Taking it seriously. I'm going to compare it with Ebola again. When the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, what is reported is that the total of 9 people who contracted the disease outside the US and traveled into the country. Of these, only 2 died. Then there are cases of nurses and health workers who came into contact with people who had been infected by the Ebola virus in the US, and they mentioned 2, and they both recovered. I'm focusing on the recovery. Had this contract been in Africa, those 2, in my opinion, may not have survived. Simply because, yes, it's not the will, but the ability to know and handle and know what to do was done. Do you really imagine that if a fraction of this attention was focused on the Ebola virus, it wouldn't have been contained by now? It would have been. It keeps it would have been
dealt
a
with.
long time
It
ago.
should have been dealt with. Yes. Now, of course, they'll talk about inaccessibility of some of these areas. If you look at DRC, a vast forested area, inaccessible. But of course, it also means that
all these
we don't
logging
have-
companies
we don't have many people in those
that
areas
want to
as well.
ship out the timber from that country. Do they go to the areas that are less populated and
They don't go- they don't-
and have less forests?
They don't log in the urban centers.
Right.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric, for that.
What are they
We
talking
would
about?
not have been able to figure that out. But okay. Right, of course, I think then, over and above all of this, you go to pointed leadership and you say that and this is clear then, it's an indication of how they are able to do other things and how basically they've gotten to that place where, yes, globe leader, and we see people clamoring to, be associated with them for what then they've been able to do in this case. And unfortunately, and I think there are lessons to be learned here. It's not over, it's far from over. I think the infections continue, but from all indications, they're not going to get to the point where they will not be able to handle it. And I think this then is the poster child for where we need to be heading in terms of disaster management. We had quite a number of Kenya, haven't we, in the last few months?
So let's ask
we want to start
the
counting.
elephant in the room, right? Should we block travel to and from China?
Yes.
So the government has already said reduce non-essential travel to and from China, and especially Wuhan. Should we be saying no movement of persons from anywhere within China
Yes.
or to?
Yes. Simple. You see, you don't need 100 people with infections coming to the country. The only way you guarantee that not even one comes in is you just say, stop. If people who are incubating this particular virus are telling you stop, and you have people who keep traveling to that country and you're not following the example, what exactly are you saying and what exactly do you think you're doing? Where you are right, Eric, about this not being very similar to a flood, I was just talking about disasters that have faced us in the recent past and how we manage them. And the example I'm giving is this. They understood about the virus when there was an outbreak. People had symptoms that they thought they understood, and then people started dying. They figured, no, this thing may not be what we think.
Yeah.
Went into overdrive. Here we were warned.
In advance.
In advance.
Yes, it's going to rain. Well, like it's not the normal
There'll
rain.
be landslides.
Yes, there'll be landslides. Again, warned,
It won't be too big.
it starts raining. Still watching.
We're ready for landslide. Let's just wait for it to come.
Yeah. This one is just in West Pokot.
Let's go to the phone lines.
Yes.
Blackwater is calling in from Mombasa. Good morning, Blackwater.
Good morning.
Morning, guys. How you guys doing?
Fine,
good.
Blackwater.
First of all, I'm thinking you guys are talking about going to China. I think this is the best time to send our leaders for benchmarking to China, especially Hunan. This is the best time we need to send them over there.
To Wuhan. And lock them in.
This is the best time.
Keep them there.
And on other matters, Mombasa, we actually right now we're having problems in Mombasa in regards to all these business permits and licenses and land rates, whereby you're finding them, going 500% up, 200% up. I mean, I think you guys need to look into that and start discussing that.
So what exactly is happening, Blackwater?
What's happening is basically you're finding that the land rates have gone up almost by 500%. You're finding our business permits right now are going up double. So say if you're paying, say 50,000, now you're paying about 112, 113,000. If you're paying 30, you're paying 60.
Yep.
You're finding things like liquor licenses have gone up from say about 100 to 150. So basically, the business is down in Mombasa, and then the county is overcharging people. Parking is going down to 200. So right now, people are not even driving in town. They're not parking in town anymore. And we don't know what's going on.
Wow. Yeah. This is something we'll discuss.
So I think, look into it, guys. Look into it. We need to discuss this.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
Blackwater.
guys.
Have a good one.
All right. Okay, bye.
Thanks.
Back to coronavirus.
There's a great similarity between the coronavirus and the way it spreads. I'm talking about viruses, but now it's actually this particular discussion on viruses being led by the coronavirus. And I am looking at these unseeming tendencies that our political class and leadership have.
Yep.
If you look at the way they spread and the way this gentleman called Blackwater has talked about it, do you not see an infestation taking place here if what he's saying is true?
It's true.
Yes, and I don't see any reason why he should lie.
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason for
Yes,
him to
but
lie.
so why? So is it that they're trying to follow what KRA is doing? So they figured that while KRA is at it, why can't we also be at it? Now, at some point, if you cannot possibly indicate or you cannot possibly justify whatever you've collected in the past by demonstrating how you've used it to the benefit of the people, and that's not difficult to determine, and then you want more money, you are facing insurrection. You may not think so, but you are.
Exactly. Of course, now people are not going to be asking questions, but they're going to be demanding.
Not only that,
for answers.
you're actually going to impoverish your people. With such demands, businesses will close. Now, if you look at, let's go back to the virus, and let's go back to diseases, and let's go back to epidemics, okay?
Yes.
The one thing, when I was looking into this subject, one of the things that I found interesting is how writers of history, when it comes to health matters, have tried to determine where many of these pathogens originated from. They have really tried, okay? But if you look at the outbreak, say for instance, the outbreak of these plagues, they'll always tell you, it came to Rome after the soldiers came from a campaign in the Far East. So what is being implied is they got it in the Far East. Yes. And then I decided to look at something that wasn't necessarily a plague caused by some animals, but something like syphilis. And the first reported case was actually in Italy, documented. I'm not saying syphilis started, but they also twisted and turned and started to look at it and say, well, when people went to the Americas and those kingdoms there, the conquistadores and the rest, when they came back with syphilis. Now, it's interesting about diseases, and yet, if you look at the decimation of some of those old civilizations, like say in the Americas, the diseases that actually decimated them wasn't a disease like syphilis. It was something like the bubonic plague, which had come from Europe. So it's them who transported it there.
Yes.
And it weakened leaders, it weakened soldiers. Death by disease was actually responsible for a lot of the victories. But they also lost many battles because of malaria. And which they thought was Montezuma's curse. Why? with malaria came diarrhea. So they said,
This is it.
these Aztec gods, this
Finished.
Montezuma
We're done.
specifically, this is a
It's-
guy who's done
he
us
has
in.
come for us.
But we've moved away from that era where we attributed things that you can understand and know to the unknown and the unseen and the supernatural. We know. And the example that China has given, I mean, it makes me want to look at this Chinese economy a little closer and look at how these guys actually go about doing their things. Because this is a success story, no matter how you look at it. But it's a success story. This is what I'm getting at. They're insular.
They're into it. About everything.
They don't pretend. They are number one. Their people are number one. Whatever else they do, number one. And you see it. And the thing is, they don't shout as loudly as the Americans. But if you look at their actions, they put their people first and they focus on what benefits their country.
What needs to be done must get done.
And there they are. And they will continue growing and becoming more and more powerful.
As
Because
we
of this
watch.
very simple thing.
As we talk.
As we watch and talk and have discussions about
About them, they're moving forward.
A 9:45, this is the situation room. You can still call in 0719-012-600. Post your comment also on social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, at Spice FM KE on Twitter, at CT Muga, at Nduoko, at Eric Latif. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, as we continue discussing plagues and how to manage them, we're looking at how China is basically reacting to this and looking at our own preparedness based on our own history. That's what CT you're pegging. You're just looking
Yes.
at what we've done before, what we're doing now, and seeing what are we likely to do if
Yes.
this thing was happening here.
And if you're looking at an infestation that is affecting very, very many lives and affecting the lives of people, we have a plague as well, and we keep talking about it.
Yep.
That particular plague that we keep referring to of impunity, because it's even far more dangerous than this particular, the coronavirus, because it actually causes more deaths, it causes the increase in poverty, it causes terrible health systems which can't even treat basic diseases that it actually ought to treat. It ensures that the very things that should reach the poor and vulnerable doesn't reach them. It's a far worse plague. It's worse than the bubonic plague. It's worse than the Ebola. It's worse than cancer. It is worse than HIV. It's worse. Because here's a situation where you have your own leadership actually methodically and systematically killing its own citizens.
Over and over
Yes,
and over.
and we have diseases whom we've given that function.
System eating its own.
Yes.
And ensuring.
Yes.
If this thing was to happen here, what the first thing we'd see, of course, is our leadership shipping out. To
No,
go
there
and
would be
seek
a task
treatment
force.
elsewhere.
No, there would be a task force.
Go seek treatment elsewhere.
They
The
would.
Chinese would not allow anybody to go and seek treatment elsewhere.
Elsewhere, how? You stay there and get well
Stay
done.
there, all of us.
We are sorting.
What are you talking about? They build you a hospital. If that's your problem, look. How are we even going to?
A hospital will be ready next week. This is
We build you a hospital,
by
and it's not
Wednesday
just
next
a
week,
building.
there will
All
be
the
a
facilities that are
brand new
required for
hospital.
this to be done, the medical staff, the facilities are in place. Everything that is needed, you go there and you get well in the place where you are, no less, so that nobody's coming out to say, "I'm going to seek
We
treatment."
contain this here,
No,
we
no, no,
fight
no,
it
no.
here.
Hospital here, you get well inside here. Come on. In terms of efficiency and expediency, these guys have done it and they've done it right. Of course, then in this case, I mean, I never thought I would be able to say it, but here, I think, yes, definitely. You need a benevolent dictator.
That's what we need.
Yes.
He needs money.
No. Look, how much money did they have when they started? The country, if we want to look at the history of it, and I think, maybe it's necessary for us to do, because case studies in many instances are the ones that now give us direction of how to go forward. You have a theory that you want to put to test. You say, okay, who's been able to use it and what have they been able to do? Now, if you want to look at China as a case study, we're not talking about a long time ago. 32 years ago, poor.
We were alive.
blistering.
Very well.
You know?
And you had teeth.
Yes.
A few at least. Blistering poverty is what these guys were going through. And it was, in this case, poverty was equitably distributed around the country. At some point, somebody said, you know what? Enough is enough. What do we have? We have people, and we have a lot of them. How about we use them as the drivers of this thing? And they put the people to work. And it was upon one man's edict and said, this is what we are going to do. However you want to take it, those who are going to come up in dissent, we get rid of you.
Yeah.
But bear in mind that you're talking about something that began, say, around 1978. Forget these stories of we are poor, we are not poor. World Bank has said it.
No.
Forget that one.
It is us. Look
850 million people lifted out
of poverty in 30 years. What are we talking about?
Out completely.
In 30 years.
And to understand it, look at where the West is looking for market. Who do you think consumes of what is produced in the West? China.
The Chinese.
Who are the ones who consume things that are to do the middle class? Chinese. Their numbers are astounding. And they have the money to burn.
They're able.
Yes, they're able.
They have full capacity to actually
Until the
spend.
point that now, even corporations, industries in places like the UK and the US, you're looking for cheap labor. Where do they go?
Set
China.
up a factory there.
Of course. The biggest companies with what, of course, they want to call sweatshops, resident in China.
No. If there were sweatshops,
The Americans still want to call them sweatshops, but I mean,
but let me ask the question: if you have a country which has managed its economy well, and for instance, the cost of living is not high, that dollar, as you call it, converted to the Chinese yuan would be significant.
Oh, of course, it's for their life, yes.
The concept of underpayment, as we understand it, would not arise.
It doesn't arise
because
for
that
them.
money would actually be enough for them to live their lives comfortably. So these are people who've understood how it is they can cost their labor and not disenfranchise their people. As to do the complete opposite. That's where the problem arises.
Because actually, it's very clear on how you need to treat your workforce.
Yes.
All these companies coming to set up in China, they are
You are told.
basic minimums.
this is the way that
Yes,
it's supposed to be.
They're told.
You shall house your workers, or you shall provide adequate, proper housing. And it's not just saying that they shall live in this makeshift thing around the factory. No.
And they're not setting task forces and
not
committees
speaking
to
to the
discuss it.
problem.
Done.
Yes, or speaking at the problem.
Everything is done here and now. Move.
But you know what is also of significance when you look at this? I don't think the figures we keep reading about are actually a true representation of what's happening in China. I think they're understated.
I think so too. I think if
In
we
this
want to
particular
actually
case
go
of
and
corona?
experience
No,
that
no,
they're
no,
doing
not corona. I'm talking
no,
about
but
the
just
economy in
generally
China.
the
No,
economy.
not corona, no.
I think they're actually doing a lot better than
they're telling us.
Than they're telling us, or
Yes.
that we see, or in terms of what the evidence suggests. I think they're doing a lot better, and I think they're far ahead of even this number one that we're talking about. I think they're
Why would they
far,
want to
far
withhold
ahead.
that information?
What interest do they have in sharing it? Where it's a pawn that they could play in the future.
It is your strategic position, really.
Absolutely.
Why would you want someone to
Why
know
do you
what
want
it
to show
really is?
somebody your hand? Why?
Why should you?
Maybe initially they could do that.
So
now,
that-
they started, allowing more and more information.
Remember
So they
that
get to this point where they are at now. Everybody agrees that you're a dominant power. Everybody agrees that this is who you are. If any Chinese company comes to invest in your country, you're thinking, wow.
But in this case, it's a bird in hand, because there's so much more you can do with information that nobody really knows about. There's so much more in terms of a strategic position that you can place yourself in with information that nobody really knows about. So people are here doing this daily and talking about back and forth, trade with China. And these guys have far surpassed any kind of expectation that you wouldn't even really understand. And I do agree. I think the numbers are underrated.
Actually, when you talk about organizations like World Bank and how they estimate growth and how they determine it, the Chinese have passed it. So what do you peg their growth to? People who... exactly, because the benchmark was this. They've surpassed it.
And we're done.
Yes, and it's obvious they are done. These are people who build cities and they don't actually have people who are going to stay in it fully.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? Just look at just the actual physical building, whether it is the materials, whether it is what. These fellows have consumed natural resources in building their economy that no other civilization or country has done in those 30 years. None. How could they have done this if they didn't have the resources? That's what I pegged this thing to. I said, no, you can't do this if you don't have the resources. So they had the resources, which means even when you talk about them having a turnover of $14 trillion US, it's more.
Oh, definitely it's more. And you know, one thing that's also very important for us to understand is that for what they were able to do in 30 years, they had a 60-year plan. They had 12 blocks of 5-year plans. So the plans, this is why it would lend credence to this point, that they have not even exhausted their plans.
They're still
Do you
running
get
out
it?
of plans.
In fact, there are those who argue it was a 70-year plan.
They're
rolling
number
out of
one.
plan. They just
They're
lied to us
number
to
one,
60.
and they're just halfway through their plans for economic development.
Catch up if you can.
I'm telling you. So here you go.
If you talk to people who are open, and if they come from this wonderful country called China, even the young people who were told and they knew, the focus was not just to do well, but to overtake America. Focus.
That was their driving
Focus.
That was where they were headed.
Overtake. Not kill, no annihil, just overtake.
Overtake.
Yes. And they focused.
So as we come to the end of the show, let's take a look at what's happening. Of course, this morning, what we know is that the governor of Kiambu, as of 9 p.m. yesterday, was Ferdinand Waitito. As of 9:30, it was not Ferdinand Waitito. So this was gazetted overnight, sent to the government printers. It was gazetted. This morning, the Chief Justice has already assigned a judge to go to Kiambu and swear in Mr. Nyoro as the new governor of Kiambu County. So that ceremony is certainly about to take place this morning. The law says that a new governor shall be sworn in between 10 a.m. and is it 2 p.m.?
When the sun is still shining.
When-
The
before
sun
the
is still
sun
up.
goes down.
Even if
The
it
governor,
isn't- even if
governor
it
shall
isn't
assume
shining,
office. So that ceremony is about to happen within the next couple of hours. We'll have a new governor in Kiambu County, and this is the name, James Nyoro. What we were discussing earlier is the likelihood of Ferdinand Waitito going to court
And if he
to
goes
challenge
court,
the impeachment and
what
what
if-
happens.
And what if his challenge is successful?
Yes, what happens after that, right? So we wait to see what comes out of this. There are, of course, those who are arguing, why such a hurry? Why?
Why is it a
that
hurry?
Mwenda Njoka, the government printer, was waiting. So I'm waiting.
No.
I'm watching the news. Atwende nyumbani.
We're waiting for this
There's
paper
something
to come.
coming.
But Eric,
We have a special gazette notice to
Eric,
print.
it isn't a hurry. You see, this is my exact point. This is the Chinese style of dealing with things.
Do things.
Immediate prompt, now, get it over with, move to the next issue.
That
Yes.
should be a way of things that we should adopt.
Yes,
We'll
this
see
is
things
what
happening.
brings development.
That is how
This
development is
we
driven.
are seeing development-driven action.
And development begets development. You see one happening like this, you will see another one following quickly.
Yes.
Swiftly, another one like
You know,
that.
we keep saying being thrown under the bus.
This
Here,
is it. Huh?
The buses
No.
are being
Big one.
lined up.
there's no bus. Find another vehicle.
This is not being thrown
Use
under the
something
bus.
else.
This person is going to have to be thrown under something. Yes.
It's a train. It minces you, basically. It's closer to the surface, to the ground, finishes you
No,
off.
that is efficiency. It means we are able to be efficient.
Gazette notice comes out before midnight
It's
of the
possible.
same day.
It's
Kabisa.
possible. That means a whole host of other things actually can be done
Of
in
course
this
they can.
country.
Yeah, we're waiting for tomorrow morning. The government printer. We don't have enough paper.
Yes. So when we accuse the government, and this one, the correct word, accuse, do we accuse them wrongly? The answer is no.
No.
These inactivities, inactions, they're deliberate.
It is possible for it to
It is
happen.
more than possible
more than
for
possible.
even this locust nonsense to be sorted,
sorted out.
the flooding to be sorted out. All these things can be sorted
For people
out.
to be rehoused.
They can be sorted out. Maybe they should take Mwenda and Joka to some of these some of these
Other areas.
some of these ministries that do the things we never ask them to do and we don't actually want them to do.
Yeah, and they do it immediately.
Yes.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room this morning and every morning. We are here Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. What we've discussed today is a number of things. We've looked at Kiambu, we've looked at the IMF reports and vis-a-vis our own internally generated reports. We've looked at our capacity to handle international disasters and catastrophes and epidemics like what is happening in China and what they've done, containing it such that the world is actually not getting caught up in this. Fewer and fewer cases. Yes, a fifth case was confirmed in France this morning, but that's a fifth case in France. This is among the countries that have the highest in the European bloc. In Africa, countries have one. We have a case of a quarantined patient at KNH, not confirmed. This is the official position that this is not a confirmed case of the coronavirus in Kenya. Join us again tomorrow. CT Muga, say goodbye.
Let the conservation
Conversation.
What does it?
Conservation.
Conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Continue.
We'll talk again tomorrow.
Conversation will continue tomorrow as CT
Yes.
conserves his
Energy.
energies.
Okay.
All right. See you tomorrow. Of course, remember to tune in to the Spice Drive with Monique, and Adults in the Room will be here between 7 p.m. and 10